Chapter 1854. After talking to Syzax and Asashel, Noah decided to return to the academy the next day. Frankly speaking, Noah was neither a demon nor an angel nor a fallen angel. At the same time, he was not a member of any other mythical faction. There was no reason for him to act on behalf of any faction. However, just because he did not belong to any faction did not mean that Noah could not be close to people from other factions. Lias, Tsang-Na, and the two girls' families were all Noah's students. Syzax and Achuka, on the other hand, were somewhat indebted to Noah. Back then, if Syzax and Achuka had not sacrificed a month to accompany Noah in his special training in the alternate dimension, Noah would not have been able to take the solid step of using more than 2 clones at the same time. As the saying goes, the beginning of everything is the hardest. If Syzax and Achuka had not helped Noah with his special training, Noah would not have been able to take the solid step of using more than 2 clones at the same time. Then, he would not have been able to achieve the results of using 3, 4, or even 5 clones at the same time. Moreover, for Noah's special training, Asashel had also done his best to arrange things for Noah. He contacted Syzax and Achuka, prepared the alternate dimension, and even took on the roles of the 2 demon kings. Noah would not have been able to carry out the special training as well. With all these factors added together, Noah's side was very obvious even though he did not join any faction. It was not impossible to stay out of it, but it was up to Noah whether he was willing to do so. And would Noah be willing to watch Lias and the other girls fight hard while he, the teacher, watched from the sidelines? The answer was naturally no. With that in mind, Noah had to at least return to Coal King Academy to oversee things and help Lias and the others come up with plans. He also had to watch from the back to prevent the girls from dying prematurely. Syzax and Asashel probably asked Noah to return to the academy to oversee things because of his good relationship with Lias and the others. Otherwise, with Noah's power, Syzax and Asashel could have asked him to do something more beneficial for the 3 factions instead of guarding 2 young pure-blooded demons and their families. In other words, while Syzax and Asashel valued Noah's strength and ability, they did not have the intention of using him. Noah was well aware of that, and simply decided to return to the academy. But before that, there was one more thing Noah wanted to do. Noah returned to the room where he had lived for a while under the guidance of Gemengli's servant. As soon as Noah returned to his room, he took out the gift card. As the gift card flashed, a piece of dragon jade appeared in his hand. Clang! Almost at the same time, the dragon jade lit up like a crystal ball, its color becoming brighter. Looking at this scene, Noah smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. How do you feel, Drake?" As soon as he spoke, an incomparably heavy voice came from the dragon jade. "Compared to when I fused into your soul, although I'm now living as a host in the jade, I feel much more free. At least I won't be forced into a deep sleep when you don't need my power. Should I say that this situation is good?" Speaking of which, ever since he met Noah, Drake had indeed been in a tragic situation. Because his power had fully fused with Noah's authority, Drake was also fused into Noah's soul. When Noah did not use the power that originally belonged to Drake, Drake would be forced into a deep sleep. Later, Gaia and Alea separated Drake from Noah's soul, claiming that he had contaminated Noah's soul. Since then, Drake had always been in a deep sleep state, only waking up when Noah returned to this world. Wasn't this a tragedy? He still remembered that when he first woke up and found that he had separated from Noah's soul, Drake was extremely shocked. After all, without using the power that originally belonged to Drake, Drake would not wake up. Naturally, he would not know why he was separated from Noah's soul. Drake did not even know that Noah was special, let alone that Noah did not belong to this world. Simply put, it was the feeling of, why did the whole world change when I woke up? Noah was too embarrassed to tell Drake that because Gaia and Alea thought that his existence was polluting his soul, the 2 restraints separated him from Noah's soul. If he told Drake this, Noah felt that Drake would definitely cry. Thus, Noah simply lied, saying that there was a problem with his authority that caused this situation to happen. In the end, Drake really did not feel the existence of the authority that originally belonged to him in Noah's body, so he believed this reason. But, this way, if I meet that white guy again, he will definitely make fun of me, right? Drake said self-deprecatingly. As his old enemy, I am now only a soul body, not even a divine artifact. My battle with Erubian will probably end here, right? Saying this, Drake's words had a trace of relief, but also a trace of unwillingness. Noah had heard Drake say this before. After so many years of fighting each other, the two heavenly dragons had already forgotten why they were fighting so fiercely in the first place. Therefore, there was no enmity or grudge between the two heavenly dragons. They were just like old enemies. Now that this relationship was announced to end, Drake felt relieved, but he also felt that he had lost in the end. After all, no matter what, it was Drake who had a problem, right? Hearing the self-deprecation in Drake's words, Noah also felt a sense of guilt. He did not expect that Gaia and Alea's actions would have such an impact on Drake. Now, Noah could only rack his brain to think of a way to make it up to Drake. However, at this time, Athena's voice sounded in Noah's heart. If you want to continue fighting, it is not impossible. Ha! Noah was stunned. Oh. Drake was surprised. I have never heard this voice before. It seems to be different from the wolf hiding in your soul. Whose voice is it? It seemed that Drake could hear Athena's voice. There is no need to mind my existence. I have only abandoned my past identity and position and obtained a rebirth as a subordinate. Athena said calmly. However, I can't just sit by and watch the warrior who wants to continue fighting. Furthermore, you're a dragon. In the past, I was also the existence that controlled the dragons. If I do that, it will be beneficial for the person who wishes to continue fighting. Crimson Dragon, you just have to tell me. Do you want to continue fighting? You were an existence that controlled dragons in the past. You are quite bold. Drake laughed. Although I do not know who you are, I will answer your question. I am the Crimson Dragon Emperor, the crystallization of power. Drake declared boldly. If I do not feel happy about fighting, then I am not a dragon. Well said. Athena's goddess of war seemed to have been ignited by Drake's bold words. Since that is the case, I will lend you a hand. But, what do you want to do? Drake asked curiously. In my current state, it will be difficult for me to fight, right? It's simple. Just return to your original state, Athena said. In other words, return to the state of a divine artifact. Return to the state of a divine artifact. Drake was shocked. Return to the state of a divine artifact. Noah could not help but exclaim. Can you do that? Athena. Based on the current situation, it shouldn't be too difficult to do so, Athena said. My beloved, have you forgotten that you once obtained the method to create a divine artifact from the 12-winged fallen angel? After hearing Athena's words, Noah suddenly remembered. In order to make Noah a suppressive force for the three factions to form a peace treaty, Asashel had indeed given Noah the method to create a divine artifact. So, it is very simple. Athena said indifferently. Create a divine artifact. Chapter 1855. Chariot King Academy, the Human World. It was noon, and the students of Chariot King Academy were having their break time after class. Even if one were to look in from outside the academy gates, they could clearly see the students in Chariot King Academy's uniform gathered in groups of 2s and 3s. They were either eating lunch on benches, or spreading cloth on the lawn as they chatted. It was a lively scene. Laughter and chatter could be heard from the academy. The midday sun shone warmly on each of the students. The scene of the students laughing under the sun made people feel warm from the bottom of their hearts, and they were strongly aware of the beauty of campus life. Still, the commoners did not know that the person behind this seemingly ordinary academy was not a human, but a demon. Of course, there were many demons in Chariot King Academy, but they all mingled with the commoners. It sounded unbelievable, but that was the truth. Just like how humans were divided into good and evil, demons were divided into good and evil as well. Fortunately, the demons living in Chariot King Academy were not of the unorthodox path. Of course, there were times when the students were enjoying school life, while the aberrant demons could only work in the dark, doing things that the commoners could not do or even know about. Under such circumstances, a group of young girls in their prime were strolling along a small path in the academy. It was a group of girls who were adorable in every aspect. Among the girls, there was a very stylish boy. In the middle of the girls, there was a leader with long red hair that reached her waist. It was none other than Leith and her king. "I'm so tired." Elena shrugged her shoulders with a weak look on her face. "Today is going to be another tough battle, yeah." Genova sighed as well. "It's so much more tiring than when I was carrying out annihilation missions in the church, that can't be helped." Zhu Nai had a rare look of bitterness as well. "We've been fighting all this time. We've reached the point where we have to fight terrorists every day, haven't we?" Labelle's voice was filled with hardship. "I really don't understand why those terrorists keep targeting this town. If this continues, even I, a Phoenix member known as the Phoenix, won't make it." Sorry," Aisha said guiltily. "I can only heal everyone's wounds, but I can't restore stamina, mana, or spirit. If I could, everyone wouldn't be so tired." "Senior Aisha didn't do anything wrong," the kitten said in a monotonous voice. "So, please don't apologize." "Kitten's right." Yudu was the only one who still had some spirit, and his smile even had a hint of sunshine in it. "We're already grateful that Aisha helped us heal our wounds. There's no need to apologize." "Yudu's right." Leith patted Aisha's head as well. "Aisha's," she said with Yudu. "I'm here," Leith said. As she spoke, she turned around and spoke to the two girls behind her. "Gasper, Los Vies, you've seen Aisha's hard work, haven't you?" Taking a closer look, other than those present, there were two more people following behind Lias. One of them was a beautiful girl wearing the uniform of the Colt King Academy. She had shoulder-length platinum short hair, a pair of elf-like ears, and a pair of red eyes. The other girl was not wearing a student uniform, but a female teacher's blue uniform. She had beautiful silver hair that reached her waist, and her figure was tall and voluptuous. She was about 17 or 18 years old. Gasper was referring to the girl in the Colt King Academy's uniform. Los Vias was referring to the girl in the teacher's uniform. Both of them nodded at Leith's words. Senior Aisha is really working hard," Gasper said timidly as he shrunk his petite body. "I'll work as hard as Senior Aisha. Please don't think of me as useless." Saying so, tears began to accumulate in Gasper's eyes, as if he would cry at any time. It was easy to see how timid he was, and how he seemed to be very self-abased. As for Los Vias, he coughed and made a very formal evaluation. Although she didn't go to the front line, as a healer, Aisha's power is very precious. Without Aisha's healing, we would have fallen long ago. So Aisha's contribution is huge. No. There's no such thing. A faint blush appeared on Aisha's face, and she seemed to be feeling a little shy. At this moment, Los Vias changed the topic. "However, we can't go on like this. If the terrorists keep attacking us at the current pace, then sooner or later, all of us here will fall." Los Vias' words made everyone's expression turn heavy. This was because everyone knew that Los Vias' words were not without reason. Since the end of the summer vacation, when Leith and the others returned from the underworld, the attacks from the disaster cluster had almost never stopped. At first, it was still fine. The opponents they encountered were just some insignificant characters who seemed to be the basic members of the disaster cluster. Although these people controlled some magical creatures, they did not cause too much trouble. Moreover, the disaster cluster's attacks were not so frequent in the beginning. It was about once every 3 to 4 days, and Leith and the others could still handle it. However, the situation changed after the visit of the Norse main god, Odin. At that time, Leith and the others directly faced the Norse evil god and the legendary-level ferocious demonic wolf. Against such an opponent was no different from courting death, given the abilities of Leith and the others. Fortunately, at that time, Asashel and a few of the fallen angels' cadres were also present. Wally also led his team into the battlefield. Even the infinite dragon god, Orpheus, who was known as the strongest existence, made a move. Only then did Leith and the others luckily survive. However, since then, the disaster squad seemed to have raised the threat level of Laius and her party by several levels. Not only had the strength of the attackers increased by a lot, but their numbers had also increased by a lot, and the attacks had become more frequent. Among them, there were even individuals who had divine artifacts and people who could use magic and magic. After being attacked continuously, even Leith and the others felt that they could not hold on for much longer. The fact that we survived the hands of a god, and even the top 10 demonic wolves in the world, seems to have made us dangerous in the eyes of the terrorists. LaBelle sighed. Undoubtedly, there was almost nothing we could do to help at that time. We were only responsible for annihilating the mass-produced monsters brought by Loki. The monsters created by a god, even if they were mass-produced, and each of them was much weaker than an existence like Fenrir, we could deal with them. That also raised our evaluation in the hearts of the terrorists. Zhu Nai shook his head. No, just being able to survive such a battlefield is enough to raise our evaluation a lot. In fact, not only among the terrorists, but also in the demon realm, the evaluation of Minister Leith has also risen a lot. Yudu smiled slightly. The higher-ups have begun to look at the minister in a new light, thinking that if the minister were to debut in the future, she would definitely have great achievements, so it's not all a bad thing. That's true. Leith smiled and pulled herself together. All right, my lovely dependents. Although it will be very tiring, we still have to keep our spirits up. We can't let others think that we, the Jumanli dependents, can't even survive this little ordeal. Do you understand? Yes. Everyone's spirits were suddenly lifted, and they responded loudly. At this moment, a chuckle sounded. Seeing that you can still be so energetic, probably even the terrorists will feel afraid, right? Chapter 1856. The sudden voice startled everyone in the group. Then, everyone saw it. At the front of the path, a young man wearing a black shirt, black pants, and a white coat, dressed like an ordinary person, was waving at them. Apart from Gasper and Losvius, everyone else's eyes widened when they saw the young man, and their expressions changed. Teacher Isha and Xiao Mao both cried out in surprise. Lord Noah. Laibel covered her mouth, and a look of joy appeared in her eyes. Laius, Zhunai, Irina, Genova, and Yudu were also surprised and delighted. Only Gasper and Los Vias looked at Noah in surprise. Then, the group of people ran in the direction of Noah. Teacher Isha hugged Noah's arm happily. You're back. Teacher. Kitten's expression was as emotionless as usual, but her voice was a little louder than usual. Welcome back. You're finally back. Laius led the rest of her kin to Noah's side. When did you come back? I've just returned to the Gemengli's house yesterday and stayed there for a night. It was only this morning that I asked Sizax to activate the teleportation circle so that I could return to the Supernatural Research Department's office. Noah stroked Aisha and the kittens' heads before looking at Laius. It's been a month since I last saw you. Looks like you've had a harder time than I thought. As he said that, Noah noticed Gasper and Los Vias, and asked curiously. And there are some unfamiliar faces. Let me introduce them to you, teacher. Laius smiled and turned to point at Gasper and Los Valles. Both of them are my kin, Yizichin said. Los Valles stepped forward as Laius's voice trailed off. Greetings, I'm Los Valles, Laius Gimli's rook. I've heard a lot about you, my lady. Los Valles is like Teacher Noah, a teacher at Foal King Academy. He just became my kin not long ago. Laius's lips curled up slightly. And Los Valles' true identity is the Norse Valkyrie. Valkyrie? Noah looked at Los Valles in surprise. The Valkyrie was a demigod in Norse mythology, also known as the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie in Norse mythology meant the glutton for corpses, which slowly evolved into the woman who chooses the dead in battle, and even the dream lover who appears in front of the hero's eyes. As the name suggested, the Valkyrie was a divine clan that had a close relationship with the dead and heroes. Some of them were the daughters of kings from the human realm, some were the children of Odin, and some were warriors who swore to serve the gods and were chosen by the gods to ascend to the heavens. Their main job was to lead the souls of the heroes who died on the battlefield to the Hall of Valor so that the heroes could become heroic spirits and fight for the gods. Therefore, in Norse mythology, the Valkyrie was a very famous deity. Although she was only a demigod and her power was far inferior to those real deities, in terms of fame, the Valkyrie was even more famous than many deities in Norse mythology. Everyone often thought that the men chosen by the Valkyrie had the potential to become powerful warriors even if they were not heroes. In fact, in Norse mythology, many men who mated with the Valkyrie did indeed have extraordinary fame and combat strength. Some even became partners with heroic spirits and wrote many beautiful stories together. As the saying went, every hero had an excellent woman by his side. The Valkyrie, who had a close relationship with the heroes, was almost the perfect embodiment of this saying. Noah did not expect that someone from the race that enjoyed such a great reputation in Norse mythology would become a demon's kin. It really surprised him. Lothius was a bodyguard brought by the Norse main god, Odin, when he came to visit not long ago. However, after some twists and turns, Lothius became my kin. Lias put her hands on her waist. By the way, Lothius is proficient in all kinds of Norse magic. He is very proficient in both offensive and defensive magic, and with the buff of Rook, he would not be any weaker than a superior demon. It's just some research. Compared to Lord Noah, I still have a long way to go. Lothius quickly shook his head, but his eyes were full of curiosity when he looked at Noah. Before I left Lord Odin, I often heard Lord Odin mention that there was a very famous godslayer here. Even Lord Odin could not help but come to investigate, but he did not see her. Now that I have finally met her in person, it is an honor. It is also an honor to meet the famous Valkyrie of Norse. Noah shrugged. Miss Lothius is also a teacher at Colt King Academy. She is in the same position as I am in the workplace. There is no need to be so respectful. Is that so? Lothius tilted his head and nodded. If that is the case, I will just call you Master Noah. Please take care of me. Please take care of me. Noah smiled and then looked at Gasper. You are also Leah's kin, right? Gasper did not respond to Noah's greeting. Instead, he looked as if he was startled and hid behind Junai. Era. Junai smiled gently as if he was talking to a naughty little brother. Don't be so rude, Gasper. Hurry up and say hello to the teacher. Yes. Gasper stuck his head out from behind Junai and spoke timidly. I'm Minister Lias's bishop. I'm looking forward to learning from you. Gasper is a hybrid between a vampire and a human. He also has a divine artifact. Lias introduced proudly. A divine artifact that can freeze the time of everything within its field of vision, forbidden Baylor view. Freeze time. Noah raised an eyebrow. There is such a divine artifact? The ability to control time was no ordinary ability. Among other things, Noah's phoenix form was a kind of authority that could reach Godspeed through time control. With the authority of Godspeed, Noah was almost invincible against opponents who did not have the mind's eye skill. Although the divine artifact of Gasper's kin was used to stop the time of a target, and not the ability to shorten the time to reach the target like Godspeed, it was still quite amazing. If it was not for the limitation of being able to stop the time of an object within sight, Gasper's divine artifact would probably become a divine artifact. In addition, Gasper was a vampire hybrid and could use vampire abilities. Even if he did not reach the level of having both a divine artifact and a demon king's bloodline like Wally, it was still terrifying enough. Such a person is just a bishop? Noah could not help but ask. If it's just a bishop, is there a way for him to be reincarnated into a demon? It was a chess piece that could reincarnate other individuals into a demon's kin that belonged solely to oneself, a demon chess piece. It was a chess piece that could determine its value based on the reincarnated target's various abilities, talents, and strength. Among all the chess pieces, the value of the bishop piece was the same as the value of the knight piece, which was only equivalent to 3 pawn pieces. Back then, even Isha and Irina had to use 4 pawns to successfully reincarnate. How could this mixed blood, who had the abilities of a vampire and such a powerful artifact, be able to successfully reincarnate with just 1 bishop? With Gasper's value, in Noah's opinion, let alone a bishop equivalent to 3 pawns, even a rook equivalent to 5 pawns wouldn't be able to successfully reincarnate, right? Unless it's a queen that's worth 9 pawn soldiers. Otherwise, there should be no way for Gasper to successfully reincarnate. What was going on? Chapter 1857. Looking at Gasper, who was timidly hiding behind Junai and did not even dare to look him in the eye, Noah found it hard to believe that this guy would have such a foul artifact, and that he was a vampire that lived on blood. Was this the so-called, you can't judge a book by its cover? However, how did Gasper use the bishop's pawn to successfully reincarnate into a demon? After thinking about it, Noah could only think of a special situation. Could it be that this child did not use an ordinary demon pawn, but a mutated pawn? A mutated pawn. As the name suggested, it was some mutated individuals among the demon pawns. They were no different from ordinary demon pawns, but there was only one difference. That was, even if the reincarnation target was extremely valuable, this value could be ignored, and a target that required multiple pawns to be reincarnated could be solved with only 1. This kind of rare pawn was not uncommon. Among the superior demons who could have their own kin and pawns, the probability of them appearing was about 1 in 10. This Gasper was probably reincarnated using a mutated demon pawn, right? That's right. I have a mutated bishop pawn in my hand, and Gasper used that pawn to reincarnate. Leah's confirmed Noah's guess. Gasper is indeed very talented, but his only flaw is that he is very timid and dangerous. Dangerous? Noah blinked. How do you say that? Simply put, Gasper could not control his artifact. Junai helped Leah's explain. Gasper has a very powerful potential. Even if he does nothing, his strength is increasing every day, but he is completely unable to control it freely. Lord Sazax thinks that this is very dangerous, and the higher-ups of the demon side also think that if Gasper is left alone, his ability will go berserk, so Gasper has been sealed in the room before. Yudu continued Junai's words. However, recently, the minister's evaluation has risen a lot, and the higher-ups think that the current minister may be able to control Gasper, so they let the minister unseal Gasper. In that case, Leah's did say before that she already had a bishop. Now it seemed that the bishop was Gasper, and the reason why he had not appeared all this time was because he did not control his power well and was sealed. Now, as Leah's grew and her rating rose, the title of bishop was finally unsealed. Thanks to everyone's help, Gasper can now more or less control his artifact. At least he can ensure that he will not unconsciously activate his ability in his daily life. Leah's Gasper's head. All that's left is to wait for Gasper to be able to activate his power and use his abilities on his own in battle. Yes, yes. Gasper shrunk his neck, but he mustered up his courage. I'll work. The Gasper's people suddenly sighed. The corner of Noah's lips curled up as he looked at Leah's and the other Jamanli's kin. In the demon world, as long as one was a superior demon, one could obtain a demon pawn, become a king, and obtain a family. Among these pawns, excluding the king, the remaining ones were queen, 2 rooks, 2 bishops, 2 knights, and 8 pawns. And the Gasper's people gathered in front of Noah all had their own pawns. King, Leah's Gasper. Queen, Himejima Junai. Rook, Tashiro Bayon. Rook, Los Valles. Bishop, Rebel Phoenix. Bishop, Gasper. Knight, Genova. Knight, Kibi Yudo. Pawn, X4, Wisteria Irina. Pawn, X4, Aisha Aljet. At this point, Leah's demon pawns were all used up, and all her family members were gathered. This also proved that Leah's truly had the ability to take charge, and was no longer the little princess of the Gasper family. Next, in the battle against the Disaster Squad, the Gasper's people should be able to shine, right? At least, Noah, with his superb senses, could feel it very clearly. With Leah's in the lead, whether it was Junai, Kitten, Labelle, Genova, Irina, Aisha, or Yudo, the aura of the group was much stronger than before. Come to think of it, in this month of continuous fighting against the Disaster Squad terrorists, these people's strength should have been sufficiently improved, right? Moreover, Los Valles and Gasper's aura were also extraordinary. Although Gasper's aura was still very unstable, and he had not completely controlled his divine artifact, among the Gasper's people, she was probably the one with the most potential and talent. Therefore, the future of the Gasper's people could still be slightly looked forward to. Just as Noah was thinking about this, Kitten suddenly said. By the way, Gasper is not a girl, but a boy who likes to dress up. Teacher, don't get it wrong. When this sentence jumped out of Kitten's mouth and into Noah's ears, Noah was completely stunned. Looking at Gasper, who was as cute as a doll and timid like a small animal hiding behind Leah's and Junai, with a pair of watery eyes that looked as if tears would fall out at any time, Noah's heart was in turmoil. Teacher. Aisha noticed Noah's strange behavior and asked curiously. What's wrong with you? No. Nothing. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched, and he looked up at the sky. I just feel like the world is playing a joke on me. No, it's playing a joke on everyone. A joke. Yes. A very overboard joke. Noah's return made the hearts of the Gasper's people, who were originally tired of dealing with the attacks of the Disaster Squad, as if a clear spring had been injected into their hearts, and all the pressure disappeared. With Noah, the God Slayer, no matter what the Disaster Squad did, it would be impossible for them to succeed in the end, right? Leah's and the others had been very worried that if they were defeated by the Disaster Squad, the school and the town would be occupied by the Disaster Squad and become a stronghold. By then, the safety of the people in the town would be almost guaranteed if they were dominated by a group of terrorists. Now, with Noah's presence, this worry could be swept away. This was undoubtedly a stimulant, and the Gasper's people no longer had any worries. Hence, Laius quickly informed Song Na of the matter, which left her pleasantly surprised. It was only then that Noah learned that apart from the Gasper's people, the City's people who belonged to Cana were also dealing with the terrorist attacks of the Disaster Squad. During this period, the attacks on the town had been fought by the Gasper's people and the City's people. So, like the Gasper's people, the City's people were also accumulating fatigue and pressure, and could finally breathe a sigh of relief now. As she was still dealing with the aftermath of the attack outside, Kanna could not return to the school to greet Noah, so she let Leah's be her representative to greet him first before paying a visit and greeting him personally. Since Tsang Na, who was known as an ice beauty, was so respectful towards Noah, it could be imagined that Tsang Na still held reverence and gratitude towards him in her heart. As for Noah, he stayed in the infirmary as usual when he had nothing to do. After learning of Noah's return, there was quite a commotion in Chariot King Academy. After all, Noah was quite famous among the girls in Chariot King Academy. However, Noah had no time to pay attention to those infatuated girls. That was because Noah needed to start making preparations. What was he going to do? A divine artifact maker. Athena's suggestion must be put on the agenda. Chapter 1858. Although Noah had returned to the Chariot King Academy, he did not help Leah and Kanna to repel the enemies. To Noah, they might be terrorists that he could easily get rid of, but to Leah and Kanna, or to be more precise, the Jumanli's kin and Sidi's kin, it was a battle that they could use to improve themselves. That was why Noah did not help Leah and Kanna to deal with the terrorists. He only stayed in the academy. Unless there was an enemy that Leah and Kanna could not deal with, Noah did not plan to intervene. Under such circumstances, the Jumanli's kin were still living a rather lively life, while Noah was living a rather leisurely life. He had been living a leisurely life for an entire week. Of course, it was not that Noah did not do anything. In order to create an artificial divine artifact, Noah had asked Sazax and Athathiel to help him gather the materials. However, the one who created the divine artifact was not Noah, but Athena. Although Noah had the method to create artificial divine artifacts, it did not mean that Noah could create them himself. If having a recipe could make delicious food, why would a 5-star chef be needed? It was the same logic. Having the information to create divine artifacts did not mean that Noah could create artificial divine artifacts. Therefore, Noah could not create artificial divine artifacts. But Athena was different. It's done. In one of the rooms in the apartment, Athena came to Noah and looked straight at Noah. Your artificial divine artifact. Upon hearing that, Noah looked at Athena's hand almost immediately. He took a closer look and saw that there was an artifact lying on top of Athena's hand. It was a gauntlet. A gauntlet that was crimson in color and covered in red scales. It looked extremely ferocious and looked like a dragon's claw. Noah did not need time to recognize the familiar gauntlet. It was the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. However, compared to the real Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, this ferocious crimson gauntlet was just an outer appearance. Because there was no shining jade on the back of the gauntlet. Looking at the crimson gauntlet that lacked jade, Noah muttered to Athena. This is the artificial divine artifact you created. Sacred gear. It was created by the God of the Bible to possess a special power that was out of the norm. Although most of them appeared in the form of an artifact, they were actually a special ability that only manifested in the form of an artifact. Among the numerous divine artifacts, there were only 13 divine artifacts that stood at the very top and possessed the ability to threaten even gods and demon kings. That was what people called the 13 types of the divine artifacts. Longinus. Of the highest level of the divine artifacts. And the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was one of them. The divine artifacts left behind by the God of the Bible were truly incredible. At least, among so many mythological systems, only the God of the Bible had successfully created a divine artifact that allowed humans to obtain extraordinary power. Even individuals with Longinus could obtain the possibility of killing gods. This incredible power could not be replicated by any god. Including those who were at the top of the world, they were the same. However, after years of research, Escapades figured out a way to create divine artifacts. That was artificial divine artifacts. It was a pity that most of the artifacts made by Escapades were useless trash. Even if there was any power, it was just some insignificant ability. There were very few artificial divine artifacts that could be used in battle. In this situation where even ordinary divine artifacts were difficult to create, it was simply a joke to create an artificial divine artifact like Longinus. However, Athena managed to do it. There's nothing to be surprised about. Athena's expression was unremarkable. Although the divine artifacts in this world can only be created by the God of the Bible, in my original world, most of the divine artifacts used by the gods were created by the gods themselves. I'm not the god of invention, nor the god of creation, nor the god of forging, but I'm still the goddess of wisdom. Athena's pair of coquettish snake eyes revealed the unique pride and confidence of a god. Since there's already the method to create artificial divine artifacts here, and I'm an elf, I've transformed into an elf device similar to a divine artifact more than once. Combined with your experience and memory of using the weapon refinement method to create this gauntlet, it's still possible to recreate its form. Of course, this is just a form without any power. Athena looked at Noah. However, as long as you embed the red sky dragon's dragon jade in this gauntlet, then this gauntlet will be able to recreate the power of the sky dragon's soul. In other words, without Drake's soul, this gauntlet would just be a model. However, once it was embedded with Drake's soul, this gauntlet would be instantly activated and become a divine artifact that had disappeared the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. By then, Noah would be able to obtain the power of the Red Dragon Emperor once again. Although this gauntlet would be useless without Drake's soul, it was already shocking enough for Athena to be able to recreate the power of Drake's soul. Of course, this is still an artificial divine artifact after all. Even with the sky dragon's soul as the material, as long as it's created, it will still have a lot of limitations compared to a real divine artifact. Athena smiled happily. However, I already knew this before I started creating it, so I just directed its limitations in a direction that can be controlled. It was like making a wooden barrel, but there would definitely be a plank that was shorter than the rest. Athena's method was that since there had to be a shortcoming, then she would decide where to pin it. I will infinitely increase the consumption of energy when using this artificial divine artifact. Through this method, I will determine its limitations and increase its performance to the same level as a real divine artifact. Athena's eyes flashed with wisdom. If someone else were to use this artificial divine artifact, even if that person was a god, they would only be able to use it once before collapsing and dying instantly. However, for you, who has the third perpetual motion machine and unlimited stamina and magic power, no matter how much energy you consume, it won't affect you at all. For others, this is a useless piece of trash, but for you, it is a divine artifact that is no different from a real divine artifact. Athena handed the gauntlet to Noah. Believe me, it will definitely be of help to you. After saying that, Athena turned into a beam of light particles and turned into a small platinum sword. Then, she disappeared from the spot. Noah gripped the small platinum sword that suddenly appeared in his hand and smiled bitterly as he spoke softly. Thank you, Athena. After saying this, Noah kept the platinum sword in his bestowment card and looked at the gauntlet in his hand. Noah didn't feel any energy from the gauntlet. Athena was right, the gauntlet was just a model. Noah flipped his hand and took out a piece of dragon jade. You should have heard what I said just now, right? Noah said. Is this okay? Drager. It's better than sleeping in this piece of dragon jade, right? Drager's deep voice came from the flickering dragon jade. It depends on whether you are willing to fight with me again, partner. Hearing this, Noah smiled. Do I have any reason to refuse? After saying this, Noah embedded the dragon jade with Drager's soul into the groove on the back of the gauntlet. Gotcha! With a crisp sound, the dragon jade was perfectly embedded into the groove and was firmly fixed in place in an instant. Clank! A blinding light bloomed from the red gauntlet. Chapter 1859. Clank! Under the dazzling crimson light, Noah's arm covered by the crimson light began to deform. The light gathered on Noah's arm and finally converged into a rather ferocious shape. When the red light dissipated, a ferocious crimson gauntlet appeared on Noah's arm. Whing! As the gauntlet trembled slightly, the dragon jade on the back of his hand also flickered. Boost! The sound effect with Draeger's voice sounded from the dragon jade. In the next second, Noah clearly felt a familiar power flowing through his body. Under the influence of that power, Noah's strength suddenly soared, and it doubled in an instant. Feeling the familiar power, Noah slowly raised the corner of his mouth and looked at the dragon jade in the gauntlet. Draeger, how do you feel? I don't feel any discomfort. Draeger's voice revealed a hint of joy. No, I feel more comfortable and carefree than before. It's really incredible. In the past, Draeger was sealed in the artifact and his power was forcibly extracted to become a tool for the owner to use. Now, although Draeger could only live in the jade, he was no longer in the form of being sealed. His degree of freedom had increased a lot and he naturally felt more comfortable and carefree. Really? Noah said with some surprise. I thought you would feel a little uncomfortable being forcibly extracted from the depths of your soul. But, it's different from before. I'm just a pure soul now and the soul doesn't have any power. Therefore, the feeling of the power bursting out from the depths of my soul and being extracted is actually not uncomfortable. Instead, it makes me feel physically and mentally comfortable. Draeger seemed to be experiencing the current feeling. Compared to before, it's really much more comfortable. Is that so? Noah nodded thoughtfully. Then how is the function of the artifact compared to before? Because the memories engraved in the depths of my soul are extracted and turned into power, there isn't much difference in terms of ability and performance compared to before. Draeger said. No, because there are no messy restrictions, the power I can unleash is even stronger. The only problem is that the consumption is too shocking. With this level of consumption, let alone an ordinary human, even a god or a demon king might collapse after using it. In this way, it's impossible for anyone other than you to use me. Just like Draeger said, the consumption of the booster gear was too shocking. Even if he didn't do anything, Noah could still feel his physical strength and magic power constantly depleting just by conjuring the artifact like this. If he were to use the power of the artifact, he would only need to double the power once, and even a god or a demon king would fall instantly. Therefore, other than Noah, no one else would be able to use the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. However, just like what Athena said. For Noah, who had unlimited stamina and magic power, this artifact was no different from the real, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. No. According to Draeg, because it was a man-made artifact, it did not need to be affected by the messy restrictions left behind by the artifact system of the Heaven Realm. The power that this, Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, could unleash was undoubtedly stronger. You can use the booster gear once every 10 seconds. This aspect hasn't changed much, but there is a time limit to fighting in the booster gear state. If you could only fight for 1 minute in the booster gear state before, now you can fight for 10 minutes. Draeger's report kept coming. It's the same for transferring power. If you could only use it for 1 minute in the past, now you can still use it for 10 minutes. There are fewer restrictions in terms of time, so the practicality is undoubtedly higher. What about the booster gear? Noah asked. Can the booster gear be used as usual? It can be used, but the consumption is definitely enough to make an eternal god die instantly. It's too scary, but it has no effect on you. I really don't know what to say. Draeger's voice became heavy. In addition, other than the booster gear, it seems like the Tyrannosaurus Rex can also use it. The Tyrannosaurus Rex can be used. Noah was startled at first, but then he was pleasantly surprised. Booster gear, balance breaker. Just by looking at the translation, one could understand what it meant. After all, the so-called balance breaker, booster gear, originally had the meaning of balance breaker, destroyer of balance. Only when the owner's thoughts and desires were strong enough to reverse the flow of the world, the artifact could reach this realm. That was the ultimate realm of the artifact. In other words, the highest realm of the artifact was the booster gear. However, in some of the artifacts, there was a power that was even stronger than the booster gear. That was the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Only the artifact that sealed a monster could have a power that was stronger than the booster gear. Generally speaking, the artifact that sealed a monster would have a strong seal on it. This was because if it wasn't sealed, the artifact's power would be too strong, and it would bring an unimaginable burden to the owner, leading to the owner's death. The so-called overlord was the ability to forcibly remove the seal temporarily, and completely release the sealed monster's power. This kind of forcibly obtained power naturally had a great risk. Not only would it absorb the owner's life, if it couldn't be controlled, it would also cause the owner to go berserk, and it would only stop when the owner died. The Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was one such artifact. Therefore, the Red Dragon Emperor, one of the two sky dragons, could also use the Overlord. Because the monster sealed within was a sky dragon, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gears, Tyrant, could be called that. Juggernaut Drive. As long as it was used, it would be able to obtain a power that could even destroy gods and demon kings for a short period of time. Now that I no longer have the seal left by the God of the Bible, the power engraved in the depths of my soul can be reproduced by the artifact. Naturally, the Tyrannosaurus can also use it. However, the Tyrannosaurus is still a cursed power. Let's not talk about the consumption, but it won't affect you. However, the Tyrannosaurus will also take the user's life, and even cause the user to go berserk. I don't recommend you to use it. In the past, you seem to have mentioned that your physique is immune to all side effects. Even the Tyrannosaurus can't affect you. Delag advised. However, even if you can avoid the life-taking side effects, the Tyrannosaurus can still cause the user to go berserk. It's best that you don't use it. Even if you want to use it, it's best that you find a way to prevent yourself from going berserk. Otherwise, you'll be in big trouble. Hearing Delag's advice, Noah nodded heavily. Although the Tyrannosaurus power was very strong, and Noah's physique was also immune to most of the Tyrannosaurus side effects, as long as the side effects weren't completely eliminated, there was still a risk. Just like what Delag said, it was best to explore it for the time being. Also, there's a piece of good news. Delag laughed. Apart from multiplication and transfer, the gauntlet has awakened a third ability, partner. A third ability. Noah was stunned. The gauntlet has a third ability apart from multiplication and transfer? Noah had never heard of such a thing before. That's right. That's something that has never happened since ancient times. Delag said. When the two heavenly dragons were sealed into the divine artifact by the God of the Bible, their abilities were split into several parts. Only multiplication and transfer can be used. The white part can only use multiplication and transfer. However, right now, I'm just a spirit body. I don't have any power to begin with. The power I'm displaying now is all reproduced by the artifact. Delag smiled. Therefore, even the third ability from when you were alive has been reproduced. This was indeed a rare piece of good news. What kind of ability was it? Noah began to look forward to it. Chapter 1860. Time passed quietly as Noah figured out the power of the new gauntlet. When it was almost time for class, Noah came out of his apartment and walked in the direction of Chariot King Academy. Originally, Isha and Kitten lived with Noah. Before she was reincarnated as a demon, she had nowhere else to go, so she joined Noah and became Noah's family. Kitten, on the other hand, was arranged by Leah to keep an eye on Noah before Noah was trusted by her. After Leah and the others returned from the underworld, Isha and Kitten stayed with Leah and Junai at Leah's invitation. After all, Noah had not returned at that time, and the Calamity Squad had been attacking. Leah could not be at ease letting Isha and Kitten live alone in the apartment. So, the next day, Isha and Kitten stayed with Leah and Junai under Leah's hospitality. Later, in order to be able to deal with the Calamity Squad's attacks at any time, Leah bought a mansion and let all the girls of the Jumanli family live together. As for Yudu and Gasper, because they were men, they also lived together in a house next to Leah and the others. After Noah returned, Isha and Kitten wanted to continue living with Noah. Unfortunately, the Calamity Squad was still as annoying as before. They attacked almost every day, and the Jumanli family were busy fighting every day. Under such circumstances, in order to save time, Isha and the Kitten were left behind by Leah and the others. They did not move back to Noah's apartment. Isha was very reluctant to do so, and even Kitten seemed to be a little reluctant. In the end, the two girls had no choice but to continue living with the girls of the Jumanli family. Naturally, Noah did not object. It was not that Noah hated living with Isha and Kitten, but his apartment was just an ordinary room to begin with. It was a little difficult for 3 people to live in it. In the past, he had always slept on the floor. Moreover, living with friends of the same age would undoubtedly be happier, right? When Noah said this, Isha was in tears, and even Kitten glared at Noah fiercely. It's not like that. Isha, teacher is really an idiot. Kitten, these were the words that Isha and Kitten left for Noah. In any case, Noah had finally returned to a life where he could sleep in a bed. Although he had slept in all kinds of harsh environments when he was cultivating in the mountains and forests, no one would choose to sleep on the floor when there was a comfortable bed to sleep in. Moreover, living with a cute girl is also a test for me, walking on the sidewalk on the side of the street, Noah sighed. At this moment, there was a commotion in front. Noah was slightly taken aback, and he immediately raised his head to look in front of him. He saw that there was a group of students who were preparing to go to the academy like Noah. They were all wearing the uniforms of the Jumanli Academy, and they were all gathered together and chatting with one another. Upon closer inspection, he saw that there was a petite and cute girl standing in the middle of the crowd. It was a very petite girl with waist-length straight black hair. She wore a black dress that revealed her slender limbs. She looked very cute and looked to be about 11 or 12 years old. What a cute girl. What's your name? Did you get lost from your mother? Did you lose your way? Where do you live? Can we take you back? Due to the girl's adorable appearance, the female students of the Jumanli Academy seemed to have developed feelings of affection for her, and they all gathered around her to talk to her. However, looking at the petite girl, Noah's eyes suddenly narrowed. At the same time, the petite girl in the crowd seemed to have noticed Noah, and she turned her head to look in Noah's direction. Immediately after, the young girl's eyes never left Noah's direction. She pointed at Noah, and like a quiet moonlit night, she spat out words that were pleasing to the ear but did not contain the slightest trace of emotion. "I've found you, Drager." The Drager the girl was referring to was Noah. There was only one person who used this name to call Noah. The #1 powerhouse in the world, the infinite dragon god known as the strongest existence Orpheus. Yes. The petite girl was Orpheus. As the leader of the disaster squad, and also known as the strongest existence, Orpheus appeared openly on the crowded street, surrounded by a group of extremely ordinary female students, and treated like a little girl. Orpheus's action made all the girls in Full King Academy turn to look at Noah. Teacher. Teacher Noah. It's really Teacher Noah. Ah. Teacher Noah. Teacher. The group of infatuated female students immediately screamed like fans who had seen their idol. That passionate look not only made the people around the street look at Noah strangely, but even Orpheus was stunned. He tilted his head, and had a puzzled look on his face. Noah finally reacted. Looking at the confused Orpheus, he took a deep breath, suppressed the confusion and shock in his heart, and walked forward. Teacher. Teacher is coming. He's coming. The female students of Chariot King Academy blushed. Noah was not in the mood to complain, and said to the surrounding students, "Sorry, I'm sorry. This is a child I know, just leave her to me. You can all go to school." "Yes, teacher." The group of students immediately nodded their heads. Then, they screamed excitedly as they left. It seemed like being able to talk to Noah made these infatuated female students very excited. After a while, the bustling streets returned to normal. Only Noah and Orpheus were left facing each other, looking at each other. After a while, Noah asked the question that he wanted to ask the most. "Why are you here?" "To look for you." Orpheus did not hide anything, and said in her usual emotionless tone. "I sensed your aura. So, I came to look for you." Although Orpheus did not say this out loud, Noah could feel it. Perhaps it was because of the completion of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear that the dragon's aura leaked out slightly. Orpheus must have sensed that aura, so she came over, right? "Then, why are you looking for me?" Noah stared at Orpheus. "Do you want to take me away by force like last time?" "No." Orpheus shook her head. Orpheus shook his head. Although his tone was calm and monotonous, it gave off an unfathomable vibe. "I don't know why, but I don't have the urge to take you away now." That was of course. Previously, the reason why Orpheus wanted to take Noah away by force was because the world fragment was lodged in her body. The strong feeling of wanting to be taken back by Noah affected Orpheus' subconscious, causing Orpheus to be obsessed with Noah. That was why she did that. Now that the world fragment had been taken back by Noah, Orpheus naturally would not have that kind of impulse. "But, I'm very curious about you." Orpheus stared straight at Noah and said. "Other than it, there's actually a dragon that can threaten me. I'm very curious about this." The "it" that Orpheus mentioned referred to the existence that was not in this world or even belonged to this world that was mentioned earlier. Other than that existence, there was no other individual stronger than Orpheus. And that existence was also a dragon. For Orpheus, only that dragon could be a match for her. She probably did not care about the rest. However, Noah destroyed Orpheus' idea. "There's nothing strange about it, right?" A voice suddenly sounded from the side. "If it were me, I would also be interested in the existence that is stronger than me. This is the so-called dragon, right?" Along with such a voice, a silver-haired man slowly walked out from an alley next to them. His eyes were fixed directly on Noah, and the corners of the man's mouth curled up slightly. "Long time no see, Noah Doria. You're here too." Noah was not surprised at the other party's appearance at all, and his gaze turned to him. Wally Lucifer. The person who came was Wally, who possessed the power of the White Dragon Emperor and Lucifer at the same time. Chapter 1861. Previously, Syzax had already told Asashel that there was a group of teammates gathered around Wally. Moreover, Orpheus was also currently acting with Wally. In that case, even Orpheus had appeared, so it wasn't surprising that Wally was around. Not only Wally, but Noah also felt that there were more or less restless auras around him. Each of those auras was very powerful. They were at least much stronger than the superior demons, and each of them had to be at the level of the most superior demons. As for the number, there were about 4 or 5. There were actually 4 or 5 of them who were at least at the level of the most superior demons. Coupled with Wally, if these guys launched an attack on this town, even if the Jumanlis and Sidi's families attacked together, it would be absolutely impossible for them to win. Not to mention, there was also the almost invincible existence of Orpheus here. Sensing the restless auras, Noah glanced at Wally and said calmly, "Don't worry, Wally, I'm not going to let you go, Wally. You're quite well prepared. Have you found the traces of my teammates?" Wally shrugged. "I knew I couldn't hide it from you, but don't worry, we won't make a scene on the street. My teammates aren't that interested either. They just came with me and Orpheus to see what the Crimson Dragon Emperor who can even rival the Dragon God looks like. Can even rival the Dragon God? Noah asked with a spurious smile. Undoubtedly, I lost miserably the last time, and I believe you can also see that the power I displayed at that time had a time limit. Can I take it that you're mocking me for saying that? At least, you did achieve a certain level of strength that is comparable to Orpheus. This is an indisputable fact. Otherwise, Orpheus wouldn't be curious about you. Wally looked at Noah with a burning gaze. Besides, I heard that after that, you went through special training again, and only returned to the human world not long ago. Now, you should be stronger, right? What's wrong? Noah didn't answer the question. You want to challenge me again? I just wanted to tell you that you're not the only one who's improving. In order to catch up with you, I've also given it my all during this period of time. I believe that you'll be shocked sooner or later. Varley turned his gaze to Orpheus. I'm only here to accompany Orpheus today. Unless you want to fight, I won't do anything. Your words sound better than your song. Noah curled his lips. Undoubtedly, the cluster of disasters has been attacking this town all this time, hasn't it? We didn't do it, Wally said straightforwardly. That's what the hero faction did. Hero faction. Noah's heart stirred. After this period of confrontation, the demons, angels, and fallen angels had more or less grasped some information about the disaster. It was said that there were many factions in the group of disasters. After all, dangerous members of various forces gathered in the group of disasters. Not only were there demons, angels, and fallen angels, but there were also terrorists from humans and other mythical forces. Although Orpheus existed as the leader on the surface, this infinite dragon god seemed to have no interest in managing the organization at all. He only provided the members of the organization with snakes that could increase their strength. Other than that, he was not interested in anything else. Therefore, in the group of disasters, the terrorists of every force gathered together, allowing the warlords of the kingdom of disasters to run rampant. Among them, there were two factions with the most power. One was the old Demon King faction that believed in the 4 demon kings who died in the ancient war together with the God of the Bible. However, the leaders of the old Demon King faction, who inherited the bloodlines of the old demon kings Beelzebub, Leviathan, and Asmodeus, were all taken down because of a failed attack on the 3 forces during the last peace treaty. Only Varley, who inherited the bloodline of Lucifer, was left. Varley, on the other hand, had no interest in leading the demons of the old Demon King faction to usurp the political power of the current demon realm, causing the old Demon King faction to fall apart. Now, its power in the group of disasters was greatly reduced and was no longer considered strong. The other faction was the hero faction. Just like the old Demon King faction that gathered the demons who believed in the old Demon King, the so-called hero faction referred to the faction that gathered the descendants of the former heroes and brave people. All the members gathered in this faction had the bloodline of humans, and almost every one of them had psionic abilities. Either they were humans with special physiques, or they were humans with special bloodlines, or they were humans who could use magic and magic, or they were humans who had divine artifacts. The internal members were all humans. The people of the hero faction have an unusual obsession with the identity of humans and are proud of their bloodline. There are 2 reasons why they attacked this town. Varley stretched out 2 fingers. One is to make the holder of the divine artifact reach the forbidden hand. Make the holder of the divine artifact reach the forbidden hand. Noah raised his eyebrows. They can reach the forbidden hand by attacking a town. This is the first time I've heard of such a thing. The forbidden hand was the ultimate mystery of the divine artifact. It could exert the power of the divine artifact to the limit, allowing the human's power to surpass the level of ordinary demons, angels, and fallen angels. Every divine artifact had its own forbidden hand. But to reach the forbidden hand, it was not so simple. If the holder of the divine artifact's heart and feelings did not reach a certain degree of drastic change, to the extent that even the flow of the world changed, then it was impossible to reach the forbidden hand. It was said that among all the holders of the divine artifact, less than 1% of them could reach the forbidden hand. In this way, how could the forbidden hand be achieved so easily? Naturally, the forbidden hand isn't something that can be achieved easily. That's why the hero faction used very extreme methods. As a member of the same organization, I won't reveal the specifics to you. However, Asashel should be almost done with his investigation. You can ask him yourself. Wally retracted a finger. I'll tell you the second reason why the people of the hero faction attacked this town. That is to lure you out. Lure me out. Noah finally showed a surprised expression. The goal is me. That's right. Varley nodded. As I said, the people of the hero faction are very obsessed with the identity of human, and they are very proud of their own bloodline. Because from ancient times to the present, those who can defeat the Demon King, demons, and magical beasts have always been heroes and brave, so only humans are gathered in their faction. With that said, Varley stared at Noah closely. Under such circumstances, if there is a human who can do such a shocking thing as killing a god, do you think that those guys will not be interested in you? Noah slowly narrowed his eyes. You should have a little self-awareness. The Lord God of the Northern mythology system can come for you, the dragon god Orpheus, who is known as the infinite dragon god, can come for you, I can come for you, so others will also come for you. You have long been in existence that no one can ignore, Varley said. I just want to tell you that the people of the hero faction have been eyeing you. If you don't pay attention, you may capsize in the gutter. Noah was silent. After a while, Noah asked. Why are you telling me these things? This is just a deal. Varley pointed to Orpheus, who had been staring at Noah. You also saw that Orpheus is very interested in you. It seems that he doesn't plan to go with me. In that case, let Orpheus stay by your side. Let Orpheus stay by my side. Noah couldn't help but be surprised. Are you kidding? Or do you want to stop it? Varley said indifferently. Then you have to fight with Orpheus here. Does that not matter? Noah's brows furrowed deeply at once. Don't worry, Orpheus has no desire to fight with you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to see you like this. Varley suddenly smiled. I hope you can get along well with the dragon god, my biggest enemy. Leaving this sentence, Varley turned around and walked into the alley, completely disappearing into the shadows. At the same time, the powerful auras around him also disappeared. Only Noah and Orpheus were left there. They looked at each other, and both of them remained silent. They were speechless. Things began to develop in a wonderful direction. Chapter 1862. In a cold drink shop not far from Cold King Academy, Noah and Orpheus were sitting opposite each other. On the table, Noah had a cold drink in front of him, while Orpheus had a plate of ice cream in front of him. Holding a spoon in his hand, Orpheus stared at the ice cream in front of him in disbelief. Looking at Orpheus like that, Noah bit the straw of the cold drink in boredom and felt helpless. It had been 2 hours since Wally left. In these 2 hours, Noah had tried to shake Orpheus off and go straight to the academy. In the end, just as Wally said, Orpheus did not seem to want to go back, and kept following Noah. When Noah walked, Orpheus would walk with him. When Noah stopped, Orpheus would stop with him. When Noah bought something to eat at a roadside stall, Orpheus also took the food and ate without paying. Noah hurriedly went back to apologize to the roadside stall owner and paid for it. Only then did Orpheus calm down. Even when Noah went to the washroom, Orpheus would follow him in quietly. Some of the men in the washroom did not even have time to zip up their pants before they rolled out of the washroom in a panic. To be honest, these 2 hours were undoubtedly the most difficult 2 hours for Noah. Moreover, Noah believed that if he went into Cold King Academy like that, Orpheus would definitely follow him in as if nothing had happened. After all, Orpheus was the leader of Calamity, the leader of the terrorists who were enemies of various mythical factions. If such a figure walked into Cold King Academy, which was run by demons, there would definitely be chaos. Not to mention Lias and Tsang, even the 4 demon kings might bring a large army over. By then, the trouble would be huge. Noah had no choice but to make a phone call and ask Leah to apply for a day off for him. He then brought Orpheus to the cold drink shop. After all, he could not fight with Orpheus, could he? It was not that Noah could not win against Orpheus, but it would be a disaster if he fought with the most powerful dragon god on the streets. If something went wrong, not to mention this town, even the entire island might sink into the sea because of the battle between Noah and Orpheus. So, what else could Noah do? He could only let this annoying dragon god go, right? Just as Noah was feeling extremely helpless, Orpheus, who had been staring at the ice cream in front of him, finally looked up at Noah and asked, "What is this?" "Ice cream," Noah said in annoyance. "Have you never eaten it before?" "No," Orpheus answered very simply. "I didn't know there was such food." Such a straightforward answer made Noah choke. No way. Not even of ice. Hasn't Orpheus lived for a long time? He had lived for so long, but he had never eaten an ice cream before. How exactly did this dragon god live in the past? Thinking of this, Noah sighed. "Then let's try it." Hearing this, Orpheus nodded, then stretched out his hand and was about to grab it. "Wait. Wait." Noah quickly stopped him. "Do you want to grab it with your hands and eat it directly?" Orpheus was slightly stunned, then asked. "Can't I?" This question was very powerful. At least, for a moment, Noah did not even know how to answer. Of course not, Noah could only say, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. If you can grab it with your hands, then what's the use of the spoon in your hand? Spoon. Orpheus was stunned again, then he remembered something, raised his small hand as if he was holding some kind of weapon, and showed the spoon in front of Noah. "Are you referring to this?" "No way. Could it be that this dragon god did not even know how to use a spoon? Even if he did not need to eat, he should at least learn some common sense of the human world, right?" Originally, when he first met Orpheus, this petite girl only gave Noah the impression that she was unfathomable and incomparably powerful. However, now, this impression was crumbling bit by bit. "I understand." Noah sighed again and took the spoon in Orpheus' hand. "Let me feed you." After saying that, Noah scooped a spoonful of ice cream with the spoon and put it in front of Orpheus. "Come, open your mouth." Orpheus opened his mouth very obediently and sucked on the ice cream that Noah put in his mouth, then widened his eyes. Gulp! Following this sound, the ice cream was swallowed directly into Orpheus' stomach. In the next second, Orpheus made a comment. "Cool, icy, so comfortable." At this point, Noah was no longer surprised. Instead, he laughed out loud, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that the most powerful dragon god, who was feared by countless gods, was actually such an innocent child who didn't know anything about the world. The children that he had taken care of in the past were much more mature than Orpheus, right? How did such a child become the leader of the disaster squad and commit all kinds of crimes? Unknowingly, Noah had already treated Orpheus as a child. Therefore, Noah looked at Orpheus and asked, "Hey, Orpheus, why did you form the disaster squad?" When such a question came out of Noah's mouth, Orpheus gave an answer that surprised Noah. "I didn't form the disaster squad," Orpheus said. "I just gave them power." "You didn't form it?" Noah was stunned. "Then why did you become a member of the disaster squad?" This question made Orpheus fall silent. After a while, Orpheus spoke softly. In order to obtain the eternal silence, I had to defeat the real red dragon god emperor. The real red dragon god emperor. Noah's eyes suddenly focused. The real red dragon god emperor. That was a giant dragon known as the Great Red. It was also the red dragon recorded in the Bible of Revelation. It was an existence known as the true dragon. Previously, it had been mentioned that it was not in this world, or even belonged to this world. The only dragon that was of the same level as Orpheus, or even stronger than Orpheus, was it. It was said that the red dragon god emperor was born in an illusory fantasy, lived in the gap between dimensions, and continued to fly there forever. Therefore, it was not in this world, or even belonged to this world. Even though many people knew that it was terrifyingly strong, no one was worried that it would pose a threat to this world. However, Orpheus' target was it. I want to defeat it. Although Orpheus' expression was still emotionless, his tone had become extremely serious. In order to return to the gap between dimensions, and take back the eternal silence that belongs to me. Hearing Orpheus' words, Noah could not help but recall the legend of the infinite dragon god. If the red dragon god emperor was an existence that was born from an illusory fantasy, then the infinite dragon god was an existence that was born from nothingness. Moreover, the place where the infinite dragon god was born was the gap between dimensions. That was where Orpheus originally lived. However, the red dragon god emperor had chased Orpheus out of the gap between dimensions, and he continued to fly there without stopping, forcibly occupying the place where Orpheus was born. Of course, the gap between dimensions did not belong to anyone. However, Orpheus wanted to return to the gap between dimensions, to return to the place where he was born. However, Orpheus' idea could be said to be extremely dangerous. There was no other reason. It was because it was widely believed that because the Great Red was in the gap between dimensions, the dimensional slits between worlds could be maintained in balance. If the Great Red was defeated, or if Orpheus took over the dimensional gap, then the world might undergo a major change. That change could be good, but it could also be an unimaginable disaster. Thus, until now, no one had the idea of going after the Great Red, allowing the Crimson Dragon God Emperor to maintain his transcendent status and fly freely in the dimensional gap. If Orpheus really wanted to defeat the Great Red, then the various mythological powers would definitely not sit back and do nothing. Therefore, as long as Orpheus did not change his mind, he would have to be the enemy of the world. Chapter 1863. Understanding Orpheus' true purpose, Noah's frown deepened. Although Orpheus didn't speak much, Noah still managed to infer some information from it. First of all, although Orpheus was the leader of the disaster group, it was just a symbol and didn't really mean to lead the disaster group. The dragon god had no interest in leading a force or even launching an attack on the forces of various mythological systems. The only thing Orpheus wanted to do was to defeat the Great Red. It was just that simple. Moreover, not only was his purpose simple, but Orpheus' spirit was also very simple. He didn't know how to be flexible, nor did he know how to express his feelings. His tender and cute face had always been expressionless. He didn't even know how to make ice cream, nor did he know how to use a spoon. Although he had lived for almost an infinite amount of time, his heart was more innocent than anyone else. It was impossible for such a person to attack anyone because of some ambition. Therefore, Noah felt that Orpheus was probably being used. He was being used by those who really had ambitions and led to the birth of the terrorist organization, the disaster group. Let me guess. Noah looked at Orpheus, who was sitting opposite him, and said, "Did the people of the disaster group tell you that if you can become their leader and provide everyone with power, then they will help you defeat the Great Red?" Hearing Noah's words, Orpheus nodded quietly. Seeing this, Noah secretly smiled bitterly in his heart. This dragon god, isn't he too naive? Putting aside the fact that even the dragon god Orpheus, who was known as the strongest in the world and whose power could be said to be limitless, was unable to defeat the Great Red. How could a force formed by terrorists possibly defeat the Great Red? Even if the disaster group really had a way to defeat the Great Red, it would be hard to say whether they would succeed or not. In the end, Orpheus believed others just because of a sentence without any evidence, and became someone else's power extractor and a target to be used. If this wasn't naivety, what was? Moreover, the people of the disaster group definitely didn't want to defeat the Great Red more than anyone else. This force gathered a large number of terrorists who wanted to achieve all kinds of ambitions in this world. Once the Great Red was defeated, the world would really change because of it. Then, all kinds of ambitions they wanted to achieve in this world would most likely be destroyed. In this case, even if some of the terrorists really wanted to defeat the Great Red, Noah believed that in the disaster group, more people didn't want to attack the Great Red. In this case, how could the disaster group help Orpheus defeat the Great Red? In other words, not only was he used, he was cheated. How could the Lord Dragon God be so easily used by others? He was clearly a dragon god who had lived for countless years, so how could he be so innocent and pure? Just as he thought, a voice to Noah, as to God. There's nothing to be surprised about, partner. Drager said in an understanding tone. The more powerful, the purer, this is a dragon. Drager's words made Noah fall into silence. If he thought about it carefully, perhaps this was the reason. Undoubtedly, the Red Dragon Emperor had invincible power in this world, but it had never thought of coming out of the dimensional gap. It had always been flying in the dimensional gap. Undoubtedly, Drager and Erubian, who had the title of the two heavenly dragons, had strength that could be ranked in the top 10 of the world's top powerhouses. However, when the three major forces were fighting on the battlefield, they completely disregarded the consequences. In the end, their bodies were destroyed, and their souls were sealed. They couldn't be considered rational at all. Even so, Drager and Erubian still used the owner of their own divine artifact as a medium and continued to fight for many years. And the reason for the fight, Drager and Erubian had both forgotten. Whether it was the Red Dragon Emperor or the two heavenly dragons, in the eyes of humans, their behavior and actions were inconceivable and unreasonable. However, if one thought about it carefully, in fact, their thoughts were very pure. The two heavenly dragons had forgotten the reason for the fight in the beginning, and now they continued to fight. The reason was probably just to determine a winner, and the resentment and grudges of the past no longer mattered. The reason why the Red Dragon Emperor only wanted to keep flying in the dimensional gap with invincible power was probably just like a person who liked to swim. He just wanted to swim there. In addition, Orpheus also had almost invincible power, but had never caused a decent dispute in the past. It was only in this era that he shocked the people of the major forces with his identity as a terrorist leader. In the end, he just wanted to go home. Wasn't this enough to prove Drager's words? The more powerful, the purer. This was a dragon. Looking at how Orpheus stared at the ice cream in front of him like a child who had found a fun toy, Noah had reason to believe that Orpheus didn't even understand what kind of people he had provided power to, and how many troubles and tragedies those people had caused. The more powerful the dragon, the purer it is. Athena's voice sounded in Noah's heart. The dragons in this world are really interesting. Obviously, the dragons in this world finally began to arouse the interest of Gaia, who was the incarnation of the dragon snake in the past. Master, what do you want to do with the dragon god? Even Aster couldn't help but ask. Do you want to keep her by your side? Hearing this, Noah didn't answer. He just looked at Orpheus, and after a while, he nodded. Since Orpheus doesn't plan to leave, I won't let her go. That's right. Don't let Orpheus go. In this way, without a leader, the group of disasters might be completely chaotic. Moreover, Noah didn't want to see this pure dragon god continue to be used by those with all kinds of ambitions. So, hey, Orpheus, Noah said to Orpheus. Do you want to come to my place? Orpheus was stunned. Due to the fact that he had applied for leave, Noah didn't go to school anymore. Instead, he went straight back to his apartment. Of course, Orpheus also followed Noah. Under Noah's invitation, Orpheus entered Noah's apartment, but he didn't look around like a curious child. Instead, he quietly followed Noah like a clingy child. In Orpheus' hand, there was an ice cream stick. Orpheus seemed to like the ice cream. He silently licked it while walking into the room. After Noah sat down, he went straight to the corner of the room and sat down. From the beginning to the end, Orpheus didn't say anything. He just followed Noah. Moreover, Orpheus' gaze never left Noah. No one knew what he was thinking. He just kept looking at Noah, making Noah feel a little uncomfortable. At that moment, Noah could only sigh helplessly. He picked up his cell phone and dialed a number. Not long after, the phone was picked up. I didn't expect you to really call me. Athaziel's sloppy voice sounded from the other side of the phone. The mobile phone that I modified can finally be put to good use. Because demons, angels, and fallen angels all use magic arrays to communicate with each other, it was very troublesome for Noah to contact others. After all, there had never been a cell phone that could call the underworld in heaven, right? In view of this, in order to facilitate communication, Athaziel modified Noah's cell phone so that Noah could call people he knew. As long as Noah called someone, a magic array for communication would pop up in front of the other party. It was very convenient. Under such circumstances, Noah only said one sentence to his cell phone. Come over for a while. Orpheus is with me. As soon as he finished speaking, on the other end of the cell phone, there was a crackling sound like someone had fallen hard. Chapter 1864. Clank. After Noah hung up the phone, a magic circle was drawn out of thin air in the corner of the room. It took shape at an extremely fast speed and emitted a blinding flash. In the next second, in the flash, Asashel's figure slowly appeared. As soon as he appeared, Asashel's gaze turned to Orpheus, who was sitting quietly in the corner. Looking at Orpheus, Asashel's eyes narrowed bit by bit as he spoke in a deep voice. I didn't expect you to be here, Orpheus. Asashel. Orpheus seemed to have only just noticed Asashel's arrival. He raised his head slightly and spoke expressionlessly. Long time no see. It seemed that Orpheus had interacted with Asashel in the past. Asashel obviously did not look like he was dealing with a stranger as he spoke directly. Orpheus, the infinite dragon god, the strongest existence in the world. Why are you here? Nothing, Orpheus replied with a calm expression. I just want to see why Drake is so powerful. Drake? Asashel was stunned at first, but then he understood and looked at Noah. Orpheus is talking about you, right? Noah smiled bitterly and shrugged, silently confirming Asashel's words. He's different from the Red Dragon Emperor in the past. He's very strong, Orpheus said seriously. The Sky Dragon can't catch up to me, who is both a dragon god and an infinite dragon. The only dragon stronger than me is the Great Red. However, while he has the power of a dragon, he also has another very strong power. Orpheus looked at Noah. I'm very curious about that power. If I can get it, I might be able to defeat the Great Red. In other words, Orpheus saw a new possibility in Noah and wanted to use this opportunity to observe Noah so that he could obtain a new power to defeat the Great Red. It was only at this moment that Noah realized the reason why Orpheus had been following him. You, who claim to be limitless and possess the strongest power, actually want to obtain a new power. How laughable. Asashel's expression turned bitter. However, the governor of the fallen angels suddenly spread out 12 pitch-black wings, and gathered the power of light unique to angels and fallen angels in his hands. His arm flashed with light, and he faced Orpheus. You're the leader of the terrorist forces. Do you think I'll just watch you get a new power and wander around our territory? Does Escapades want to fight me? Orpheus' expression didn't change at all. Even his voice didn't seem to have any energy as he shook his head. No, Athasiel can't defeat me. How direct. Escapades laughed bitterly. However, no one can refute it. As the strongest force on the fallen angel's side, Escapades' strength was even above the Demon King level. Of course, this referred to the general Demon King. Just like the level of the gods in the box was at the top of the 5-digit range, but most of the famous gods were at the 4-digit range, and the natural gods were at the 3-digit range. Similarly, there were strong and weak Demon Kings. The general Demon King level was the same as the level of the gods in the box, which was at the top of the 5-digit range. Some of the powerful Demon Kings might break through the 5-digit range and reach the bottom of the 4-digit range. Escapades and Echuca, who had violated the rules, were among the top 10 of the world's top experts. They were among the stronger ones among the top 4 figures and were not far away from the top 4 figures. In this way, people might not know the difference, but in the box, someone once gave a reference data of the existence of each class. According to the estimation, in the box, the power gap between classes and the power gap between the same class was roughly as follows. Because the 7-digit range was the lowest level, even ordinary people without power were at this level. There was no comparison between the existence of power and the existence of no power, so there was no specific data for the 7-digit range. In the 7-digit range, if there was a certain degree of power, then it could break through to the 6-digit range. The power gap between the top of the 6-digit range and the bottom of the 6-digit range was 2 to 3 times. The power gap between the bottom of the 5-digit range and the top of the 6-digit range was 3 times. The power gap between the top of the 5-digit range and the bottom of the 5-digit range was 3 to 5 times. The power gap between the bottom of the 4-digit range and the top of the 5-digit range was 5 times. The power gap between the top of the 4-digit range and the bottom of the 4-digit range was 5 to 10 times. As for the power gap between the top of the 3-digit range and the top of the 4-digit range, there was no clear data for reference. Because in the 3-digit range, the spiritual level of every existence was basically equal, and the only one who broke the rules was the Halloween Queen. The difference between the 3-digit range and the 4-digit range was not only the difference in power, but also the difference in realm. After all, the 3-digit range was basically the strongest. Every existence had the ability to bestow gifts on others, control authority, and possess all the abilities in their own universe. Therefore, the 3-digit range was also known as omniscient and omnipotent. Compared with the 4-digit range, it was almost like heaven and earth, and there was no point in comparing. Even the 3-digit range was like this, let alone the 2-digit range. And the 1-digit range was already the embodiment of the law. Not to mention comparison, it was not even determined whether it existed or not. Of course, there was only a comparison of power here, and the situation was different when it came to a real battle. For example, if there was an existence at the bottom of the 4-digit range with the ability to use water, and encountered an existence at the top of the 4-digit range with the ability to use fire, even if there was a difference of 5 to 10 times in strength, under the restraint of the ability, the gap in the real battle would not be that big. Another example was the existence of curses, poisonous gas, weakening, and other abilities. Even if they encountered an opponent who was much stronger than them, they could still have the advantage. Moreover, there were also people like Maxwell, who was far weaker than Noah in strength, but in the end, they relied on their powerful immortal body to entangle Noah for so long. Therefore, the power gap was the power gap, and in a real battle, it was definitely not possible to only look at the superficial gap. However, even so, it was absolutely impossible for Escapades to defeat Orpheus. With Escapades' strength, even if he was much stronger than the average Demon King, he was still much weaker than surpassers like Escapades and Echuca. Orpheus, on the other hand, was a 3-digit range. The gap between the two was really too big. Asashel was naturally aware of this. Immediately, Asashel patted Noah's shoulder. Unfortunately, I'm not the only one here. With this kid, what will the result be? Orpheus seemed to have not expected Asashel to suddenly say this, and was momentarily stunned. After recovering from his shock, Orpheus turned his head, looked at Noah, and asked, "Do you want to fight me?" "No," Noah said without hesitation. "It's too troublesome." "Oh." Orpheus nodded, and looked at Asashel again. "He won't fight me, so you still can't beat me." "No way." Asashel moved closer to Noah with a frown. "Aren't you being too direct with your words?" In response, Noah simply said, "I didn't ask you to fight me. I didn't ask you to come here to fight. If I just wanted to fight, I alone would be enough. Why would I need a burden like you?" Asashel was speechless on the spot. Coincidentally, Orpheus even added another sentence. "Is Asashel a burden?" "He's a burden," Noah said. "If the two of us fight, do you think Asashel can intervene?" Orpheus thought for a moment, and then shook his head. "Right?" Noah shrugged. "Since he can't intervene, what is he if not a burden?" "I see." Orpheus nodded. "Asashel is a burden, I'll remember that. Don't call me a burden. No matter what, I'm still the governor of the fallen angels. I'm not weak at all. It's just that the two of you are breaking the rules." Asashel couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Is that my fault? Bastard!" After saying that, Asashel sat in front of Noah and stared at him. And then, "What do you want from me?" "I want to discuss something with you." Noah finally got to the point. "Ask all the factions to withdraw the arrest warrant for Orpheus." Chapter 1865. Have all the forces withdraw the arrest warrant for Orpheus. When this sentence came out of Noah's mouth and echoed in the surroundings, the atmosphere of the entire room changed. Asashel's expression became dignified. He frowned and looked straight at Noah. "Why?" "Nothing." Noah met Asashel's gaze. "It's just that I found that Orpheus is not as dangerous as we thought. I can stop her from acting with the disaster squad. In this way, there is no need to continue to arrest Orpheus, right? You have a way to stop Orpheus from acting with the disaster squad." Asashel's eyes lit up and he quickly asked, "Really?" "There is no need to lie to you," Noah said. "Just leave Orpheus to me. I will be responsible for looking after her. If anything happens, I will bear the responsibility. Since you've put it this way, there shouldn't be a problem." Asashel glanced at Orpheus, then smiled bitterly again. "But, Noah, if you want to withdraw the arrest warrant for Orpheus, I don't think it will be that easy." "Oh." Noah's expression did not change. "Why?" "You're asking the obvious." Asashel sighed. "Even if you can guarantee that the criminal will not commit any crimes in the future, can you write off the crimes he committed before?" That was right. Even if it was guaranteed that Orpheus would not participate in the activities of the disaster squad in the future, the fact that this infinite dragon god was the leader of the disaster squad in the past could not be ignored. Orpheus herself may not have done anything, but she had given her snake to various terrorists in the disaster squad. As a result, these terrorists had greatly increased their strength and brought harm to various mythical forces. Now, the terrorists of the disaster squad were still active. Just like this town had been attacked by the heroes of the disaster squad, the rest of the mythical forces were also attacked by the terrorists of the disaster squad. Under such circumstances, the number of casualties increased day by day. If Orpheus had not lent out the snake, even if the terrorists had launched an attack, their strength would not have increased, and the damage would have been much lower. Therefore, Orpheus could be said to be the indirect culprit. At the very least, that was what the other mythological forces were thinking. Orpheus is the infinite dragon god. He is extremely powerful. Almost no mythical powers would want to make an enemy out of him, Escapades said solemnly. If it was just one mythical organization, they might have chosen to swallow the bitter pill because of Orpheus' power and reputation. But now, in terms of dealing with the disaster, all the mythical organizations have reached an agreement. All the mythical organizations have joined forces. If they don't even dare to cause trouble for one person, everyone will feel embarrassed. In addition, Orpheus' limitless power is also something that all the mythical organizations are interested in. There are many gods and Buddhas who have their eyes on Orpheus. Maybe many gods and Buddhas will use their official position for personal gain and incite all the mythical organizations to deal with Orpheus together. Then, they will benefit from it. That would work. Escapades knocked on the table. Under such circumstances, it won't be easy to revoke Orpheus' arrest warrant. I know it's not easy, but as you said, all the mythical organizations actually understand how powerful Orpheus is. Presumably, if we can prevent Orpheus from continuing to act with the disaster squad, no one would be unwilling to see this situation, Noah said calmly. Help me convey a message. Tell all the people of the mythical organizations that Orpheus is with me. I will be responsible for watching over her and making sure she doesn't act with the terrorists of the disaster squad. But if they refuse, Orpheus will return to the disaster squad. Noah curled his lips and smiled. If you don't want more deaths and injuries to your subordinates, then revoke the arrest warrant. I believe that this will be enough to make those self-righteous gods and Buddhas fear. You. Escapades was speechless. You are not negotiating at all. You are threatening me, right? What kind of threat is this? Noah said with a half-smile. I don't belong to any mythical organization. This way, I'm helping all mythical organizations eliminate a terrifying enemy. I'm even preventing the terrorists from obtaining the power of the snake that can increase their strength. I'm doing this selflessly without considering my own interests. If others don't agree, then there's no need for me to do this kind of thing that doesn't benefit me in any way, right? In other words, Noah turned a legitimate threat into a selfless help. Escapades could only choke on his words. After a while, he gave Noah a thumbs up. You are awesome. You can even turn a dead person into a living person. Aren't you afraid that those mythical organizations will turn against you and think that you are in cahoots with the leader of the disaster squad? Are you planning to harm all the mythical organizations? If they want to say that, then let them say it, Noah said faintly. It's just that if they really attack me, then I won't be passive. Anyway, it's not my first time killing a god. Don't mess around. Escapades rolled his eyes. I will convey your message to those mythical organizations. I believe that if the opponent is the God Slayer and the Infinite Dragon God, no matter which mythical organization it is, they won't do such a stupid thing as provoking them. Of course, they won't do it on the surface, but I can't guarantee it secretly. Escapades glanced in the direction of Orpheus. In addition, what are you going to do with Orpheus? I will let her live with me. Noah also glanced at Orpheus. You don't have to worry about it. All right, since you have promised, I have no choice but to believe you. Escapades stood up. But you have to be careful. The people from the disaster squad won't let you win Orpheus over to our side. Hearing Escapades' words, Noah suddenly smiled. Anyway, the people from the hero faction have their eyes on me. If they want to come, then come. On the other side, in a suburb not far from Chariot King Town, two men who seemed out of place with their surroundings slowly walked over. Looking at the ordinary small town, one of the men muttered. Is this the town where the God Slayer is? It looks like an ordinary small town. I really don't know why such a person would stay in such a place. The other man shrugged and said. But then again, you really do care about that so-called God Slayer, Chow Chow. A human who can kill a god. As the descendant of a hero, and also a human, my curiosity has long been piqued. The man called Chow Chow smiled. Don't you think it's a pity that such a person has been staying with a group of alien existences? Siegfried. It is indeed a pity, but I don't think he would be as concerned as you. The man called Siegfried smiled mockingly. This is also because you are the descendant of Chow Chow, right? You and your hero ancestor are the same. You cherish talented people, don't you? Perhaps this is one of the reasons. Chow Chow lifted a spear and tapped it on his shoulder. However, I also hope to be able to fight him. If he really did kill a god and I can defeat him, then it will prove that I also have the ability to kill a god. You have the ability to kill a god, don't you? Siegfried couldn't help but turn his gaze to the spear in Chow Chow's hand. Relying on that spear. At this time, a magic circle for communication suddenly flashed in front of Siegfried. Siegfried's face immediately tensed up and he began to listen. After a while, Siegfried suddenly raised an eyebrow and looked at Chow Chow. There's news from the troops monitoring Wall-E. They say that Wall-E handed Orpheus over to a human. A human? Chow Chow smiled. It seems that we will make contact with the God Slayers sooner than expected. What do you plan to do? Siegfried asked directly. Attack the God side. Or attack the God Slayer's side. Do you even need to ask? Chow Chow's eyes shone brightly. Of course we will attack both sides at the same time. Chapter 1866. After really starting to live with Orpheus, Noah realized that this dragon god really didn't know anything. To be more precise, it should be said that he didn't know anything about daily life. For ordinary people, it was necessary to wash up and eat, but Orpheus didn't have such a problem. Not only did he not wash up, but he also ate whenever he wanted to. He didn't follow the 3-meal schedule at all. Noah had no choice but to help Orpheus brush his teeth and bathe him. He fed him mouthful by mouthful when he ate, and even covered him with a blanket when he slept at night. He took care of him like he was taking care of his own child. Fortunately, it wasn't like Noah hadn't done the same thing before. Back in the world of the Dark Bullet, Noah had taken care of countless children, so he was already familiar with this routine. Fortunately, Orpheus was just ignorant of the world, but he wasn't a fool. He knew what to do without having to be taught a second time. Moreover, Orpheus would do whatever Noah asked him to do. He was extremely obedient. In this way, Noah also began to understand why Orpheus was so easily manipulated. Although it wasn't that he didn't have his own considerations, Orpheus' way of thinking was very simple. In Drake's words, it was too pure. Noah had asked Orpheus why he listened to him so much. After all, Noah and Orpheus weren't close, nor were they on good terms. In the beginning, they even fought. Generally speaking, it should be impossible for him to listen to such a person. In the end, Orpheus gave Noah such an answer. Give me food to eat and teach me a lot of things. That was the reason. That was why Orpheus obeyed Noah's every word. The starting point of this dragon god was really too simple, so simple that even Noah was surprised. Hence, when others told her that as long as she became the leader of the group of disasters and provided everyone with power, they would help her defeat the real emperor god Red Dragon, Orpheus agreed without hesitation. She never thought that others were lying to her or using her. If such an innocent dragon god fell into the hands of some ambitious people, it would be too dangerous. Whether it was for himself or others, it was the same. At the thought of this, Noah couldn't help but murmur to himself as he helped Orpheus dry her waist-length beautiful black hair. Wally, is that why you brought Orpheus to me? Just as Noah was thinking about this, Noah's phone rang. Noah immediately came back to his senses. He picked up the phone on the table and answered the call. Teacher. Lyatha's voice came from the other side of the phone. Are you home now? I'm at home. Noah didn't stop wiping Orpheus' hair. What? What's the matter? A little, Lyeth said. If you're free now, please come to school. Now? Noah turned his head and looked out the window. At this time, the sky was completely dark. At this time, children could already go to bed. Even adults should be asleep soon. It was a little too late to go to school at this time. However, for demons, night was usually the time when they were really active. Was that why Lyeth called Noah at this time? Thinking of this, Noah glanced at Orpheus. After pondering for a while, he nodded. Got it. I'll go over now. Then I'll wait for you in the club office. Lyeth said and hung up the phone. Noah put away his phone. He wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he continued wiping Orpheus' hair. He only spoke after Orpheus' hair was dry. Orpheus, I'm going out for a while. Wait for me at home. Home. Orpheus turned his head, and a pair of eyes as deep as the night turned to Noah. Home. Looking at Orpheus' puzzled look, Noah, who had begun to understand Orpheus' thoughts, smiled and said so. That's right. Home is not referring to the dimensional gap where you were born, but here. Here. Orpheus murmured as if he was sleep-talking. This is my home. That's right. Noah patted Orpheus' head. If you're willing, this will always be your home. Remember to be good and wait for me to come back. Orpheus was silent for a while, and then nodded. However, Noah was still a little worried. This Lord Dragon God didn't know anything. Who knew if she would suddenly run out and get lost and never come back? Looks like I have to find 2 more people to accompany you. Noah sighed and raised his hand. A dark gold gift card flashed in his hand. Clank. In a flash, 2 small swords emerged from the dark gold gift card. Hum. As soon as they appeared, the 2 small swords immediately trembled and emitted a dazzling light. Then, 2 petite girls slowly appeared in the light. Aster, Athena. Noah put away the dark gold gift card and said to the 2 girls. Help me take care of Orpheus. Take care of. Aster was stunned. Obviously, this elf girl did not expect Noah to ask her to do such a thing. You actually want me to help you take care of a child? Even Athena was a little surprised. After all, only the 2 of you can help me. Noah smiled bitterly. Well, you just need to help me take care of Orpheus. Don't let her do anything reckless. Don't let Orpheus do anything reckless. Aster muttered and then nodded heavily. I am Master's sword. Everything is as Master wishes. I really want to object. Although I have taken care of countless warriors, I have never taken care of a child. Athena frowned and then relaxed her beautiful brows. Fine, I am quite curious about this dragon god. I can have a chat with her. Aster and Athena turned their heads and looked at Orpheus. Orpheus also raised her eyes and looked at Aster and Athena. Suddenly, the 3 young girls who looked almost the same age and whose expressions didn't fluctuate looked at each other, staring at each other. Although the scene wasn't comical, there was a subtle feeling. Noah couldn't help but laugh. He picked up the coat on the bed and put it on as he spoke. Then I'll leave it to you. Be good and don't cause trouble. With that, Noah walked out of the door, leaving the 3 petite girls looking at each other. The atmosphere was still very subtle. After exiting the door, Noah directly turned into a stream of light and flew in the direction of the academy. Noah's apartment wasn't very far from Chariot King Academy to begin with. It would only take a few minutes to get there on foot, let alone by flight. They would arrive almost instantly. Noah flew into the school and landed in front of the Supernatural Research Department's old school building. He pushed the door open and walked in. It was only when Noah arrived at the Supernatural Research Department's office that Noah noticed something. Among the people present, there were not only the Jamonli's family led by Leah's, but also Sizak's. Moreover, there was another person in front of Sizak's and Leah's. It was a very imposing man. The man had short black hair and a very strong physique. He looked a little like Sizak's, but his temperament was completely different. If Sizak's was a person who exuded a gentle and elegant temperament and gave off the feeling of a noble young master, then this man in front of him was a man who was domineering and made people feel that he was very wild. Noah could feel a strong domineering aura from this man. Therefore, Noah was sure that the man was much stronger than Leah's. Teacher. The Jamonli's family led by Leah's greeted Noah as he walked in. You're here. Sizak smiled at Noah. On the other hand, the remaining wild and domineering man stared at Noah with a fierce smile on his face. Is this the legendary Godslayer? Let me introduce you. Sizak stepped forward. Noah, he's Saroj Bali. He's my cousin. Bali. Noah raised his eyebrows. Chapter 1867. Baal. This surname was not something that could be casually ignored for demons. Because it was the head of the 72 pure-blooded demons and was crowned with the title of king. It was the family with the highest status in the demonic faction apart from the 4 great demon kings. Even in the era when the 4 great demon kings still existed, King Baal was of famous existence in the demonic faction and was almost equivalent to the representative of demons. It was said that in the current system where the 4 great demon kings were extremely powerful individuals selected from the demons and abandoned their original surnames to become demon kings, the Baal family's voice in political power was even greater than the 4 great demon kings. After all, the Baal family was the family that was at the top of the demonic faction before the 4 great demon kings died. After the 4 great demon kings died, it was even more at the top of the underworld. No matter how powerful the 4 great demon kings led by Sizak's were, they were just the new generation. At least, that was the case for the Baal family. However, Sizak's and Lias also had some relationship with the Baal family. It was mainly a bloodline relationship. Sizak's and Lias' mother was a member of the Baal family. Therefore, Sizak's and Lias also inherited half of the Baal family's bloodline. And those who inherited the bloodline of the Baal family had a chance to awaken the bloodline power of the Baal family. That was the power of destruction. Both Sizak's and Lias had the power of destruction. The source of this power was the bloodline of the Baal family. Therefore, this person named Saroj in front of them was Sizak's and Lias' cousin. By the way, Saroj and I are the new generation of demons of the same era, and the number 1 of the new generation of demons. Lias smiled at Noah. Just like I'm going to inherit the next head of the Gimli family, Saroj is the next head of the Baal family. It's fine if you don't introduce that kind of thing, Lias. Saroj waved at Lias, but his eyes did not move away from Noah. In front of an existence that can even kill a god, I, a new generation demon, am only a child no matter how famous I am. Although that was what he said, Saroj's smile was extremely imposing. Saroj added another sentence. If possible, I really want to spar with you. Hearing this, Noah raised his eyes slightly and met Saroj's gaze. Noah could see an astonishing fighting spirit and will to fight in Saroj's eyes. It was different from the burning fighting spirit that Leola released out of instinct. Instead, it was an unyielding fighting spirit that wanted to challenge any powerhouse in the world, improve herself, and constantly improve herself. Along with the battle intent came a powerful aura and boldness. Feeling the powerful aura and boldness, the expressions of Yudu, Genova, and Irina, who were combatants, turned serious. Even Kitten, Label, and Losvias tensed up. As for Aisha and Gasper, they subconsciously hid behind Lias and Junai. Sizak's was the only one who still had a smile on his face, and even said so. Since that's the case, why don't you two give it a try? That one sentence made Noah and Saroj raise their eyebrows at the same time. Bro. Brother. Riaz was shocked. However, Sazax did not seem to realize what he said as he looked at Noah and said so. Saroj is the number one of the new generation of demons. Back then, at the gathering of the new generation of demons, you should have seen him once, right? Hearing Sazax's words, Noah remembered. Back then, in the underworld, there was indeed a gathering of the new generation of demons. At that time, Noah had also appeared. Furthermore, he had been received by the 4 demon kings and was on equal footing with them. After that, the new generation of demons announced their dreams in front of the 4 great demon kings and many ancient demon families. At that time, the next leader of the Ball family did appear. That person was Saroj. I remember now. Noah looked at Saroj as if he suddenly realized something. You're the new generation demon of the Ball family who announced that you wanted to become the demon king, right? So you still remember me. What an honor. The smile on Saroj's resolute face began to have a hint of intimacy. At that time, Your Excellency's bet with Diodora of the Astaroth family is still a legend to this day. To be honest, the strength Your Excellency displayed at that time was a shock to us, the new generation of demons, and even the ancient demons. It was also at that time that I realized that my cultivation was still insufficient, and have been working hard to train. I see. You've trained. Noah looked at Saroj in a new light. It seems that the spirit I feel from you is the real deal. It was rare for demons to train themselves. That was because the lifespan of demons was too long compared to humans. At least, there were almost no demons who truly died of old age. Therefore, for demons who had tens of thousands of years, as long as they lived long enough, they would naturally become stronger. It was a foolish thing to spend all of one's years on tempering. Moreover, demons placed more importance on magic power than their bodies. The purer the demon's bloodline, the stronger their talent in magic power. This way, as long as they could survive, the pure-blooded demons would continue to become stronger. Therefore, it was indeed a rare thing for demons to train. That's why I want you to fight with Saroj. Sazax said. Saroj is the absolute number one among the new generation of demons. In terms of strength, he has even surpassed many ancient demons. Many people want to know how strong Saroj is, and I am the same. I see. Noah pursed his lips. Do you want me to help you evaluate? I don't mind. Saroj showed a fearless smile. It's a good opportunity to let the famous Godslayer see how strong my fists are. An astonishing fighting spirit began to be released from Saroj's body. Noah immediately looked straight at Saroj and stared at the astonishing fighting spirit in his eyes. The corner of his mouth slowly curled up. In an extremely vast gymnasium. At this time, a group of Jimenez's family members, including Sazax, had arrived and stood at the side. In the center of the gymnasium, Noah and Saroj faced each other and maintained a distance. Their eyes met in the center. Looking at Noah and Saroj, Sazax took a step forward. This is a field replicated with magic power. Although it's not in an alternate space, but in the underground space of Chariot Town, the field has been reinforced. Even a full blow from a superior demon would find it difficult to leave a mark on it. You can fight to your heart's content. Even the battlefield has been prepared. This Sazax seemed to have expected this situation and prepared everything in advance. While Noah was thinking this, Saroj calmly took off his jacket. Under Saroj's clothes was a set of training clothes. And the body wrapped in the training clothes was very strong. His muscles were very obvious and his fists were as hard as rocks. Because I can fight at any time and train at any time, I would wear the training clothes even during normal times. It seems that this decision was right. Saroj suddenly smiled. A god slayer, and the Red Dragon Emperor at that. Such an existence should be the strongest opponent I've faced so far, so I won't be merciful. As soon as his voice fell, Bang! Accompanied by a burst of wind, Saroj fiercely stomped on the ground with an astonishing force. His whole body was like a bullet fired from a gun. With a heavy stomp, he shot in the direction of Noah. So fast! Outside the gymnasium, Yudu's expression changed slightly. Saroj's speed made Yudu, who was a knight, change his expression as he shot in front of Noah. Before he arrived, his fist had already violently blasted out. Boom! Like an invisible cannonball, a burst of wind shook the air and violently swept towards Noah's location. Chapter 1868. Whoosh! A terrifying gust of wind blew Noah's bangs in front of his forehead, causing his cheeks to hurt from the gust of wind. Noah, who did not expect Saroj to rush over and engage in close combat, had a surprised look on his face. What surprised Noah even more was Saroj's strength and speed. That strength and speed did not seem like something a demon could exert. Therefore, even Noah was surprised by the news. However, being surprised was one thing, but Noah was not distracted. Feeling the fist pressure that turned into a terrifying gust of wind, the endless energy in Noah's body suddenly surged and turned into magic power. With a tremor, lines of magic power flickered on Noah's feet like electric wires. After being strengthened by strengthening magic, Noah gained amazing strength in this instant. Immediately, Noah moved his feet and quickly dodged to the side. Bang! The astonishing fist pressure immediately landed heavily on the ground, causing an explosive sound. It actually shattered the glossy floor a little and slowly cracked open. Seeing this scene, Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. Outside the field, the group of Jumanli's kin led by Leah's was even more surprised. This field had been reinforced. Even a superior demon would have a hard time leaving a mark on it. However, Saroj's casual punch actually caused the floor to crack open. What did that mean? It meant that Saroj's strength was much stronger than the average superior demon. You really surprised me. Noah looked straight at Saroj. I thought you would use the power of destruction to attack. For demons, magic power was the true power. After all, in this world, magic power was originally an ability unique to demons. The power that demons relied on themselves and imagination to trigger supernatural phenomena was magic power. And the power that reproduced magic power through rituals and spells so that humans could use it was magic and magic. Therefore, in this world, magic power was a power exclusive to demons, just like the power of light of angels and fallen angels. In the demon world, demons generally valued magic power. If they did not have talent in magic power, they would even be regarded as trash. Moreover, in magic power, there were also parts of magic and magic that could not be reproduced. That was the special power that originated from the bloodline and lineage of the pure-blooded superior demon family passed down from generation to generation. The power of destruction of the Ball family was one of them. That power was capable of destroying everything it came into contact with. Even a god could be injured if they did not dodge or defend. Therefore, for Noah, the power of destruction of the Ball family was beyond the range of his curse resistance. The bed with Diodora back then had already made Noah's physique known to the world. Saroj, who was present at that time, should also know about Noah's curse resistance. In view of this, Noah thought that Saroj would use the power of destruction inherited from the Ball family to deal with him. Who knew that Saroj would directly rush over and engage in close combat? His physical ability was so strong that even superior demons would find it difficult to leave a mark on the floor with just the pressure of his fist. This was not a power that a demon who valued magic power could display. It was because of this that Noah was surprised. However, facing Noah's surprise, Saroj only calmly spoke. Unfortunately, I did not inherit the power of destruction. Did not inherit the power of destruction. Noah was stunned. Did not inherit the power of destruction. The next master of the Ball family did not inherit the power of destruction passed down from generation to generation. Was this a joke? I am not joking. I indeed did not inherit the power of destruction of the Ball family. I did not even have magic power when I was born. My talent in magic power is practically zero. No, it should be said that it is completely zero. Sorrogue said righteously. Everyone in the family regarded me as trash without the power of destruction, and without magic power. But I wanted to prove that even without magic power, I was not completely useless. Therefore, I trained this body. After saying this, Sorrogue squatted, his legs were like pillars on the ground. His fists were clenched, and his whole body shook with a powerful aura. This body is my greatest weapon, and also my only weapon. You will only face my fists, not magic power. In the next moment, a sharp whistling sound was heard as Sorrogue's fist violently punched out. The astonishing pressure of his fist shook again, turning into an invisible cannonball that violently swept towards Noah. Noah did not hesitate and directly dodged. Ping dash. The pressure of the fist that landed in the air once again bombarded the ground, causing the ground to suddenly burst open like a spider web, and cracks spread out. Although his fist missed, Sorrogue's fighting spirit became more and more valiant. He simply carried a powerful domineering aura and courage, and directly rushed in front of Noah. Ho dash. A series of continuous whistling sounds rang out. That was the sound of Sorrogue's fists turning into fist shadows and fiercely attacking Noah like a storm. Facing the continuous punches formed by the fist that surpassed the power of ordinary superior demons, even the most superior demons would be frightened. However, Noah's expression became calmer than before. He stood in front of Sorrogue without retreating a single step, and actually closed his eyes. His footsteps were as light as water as he continuously dodged back and forth, dodging the continuous punches one by one. Peng dash. The suffocating powerful punches suddenly landed in the air one by one, and were all absorbed by the vast gymnasium floor, causing cracks and depressions to appear one after another. It was a scene of devastation and chaos. Noah, on the other hand, didn't even get hit by a single punch. His eyes were still closed as he relied on the increased strength of his legs to dodge all of Sorrogue's terrifying punches. He didn't get hit at all. Hiya dash. Sorrogue suddenly burst out with an astonishing roar, the veins on his arms bulging. The strength of his fists became stronger and stronger, and he even began to use his legs. His punches and kicks turned into a violent storm of attacks, mercilessly venting towards Noah. Noah, on the other hand, seemed to know where Sorrogue's attacks would land. He closed his eyes tightly, and like a lone boat drifting in a storm, he retreated and dodged, appearing to be in imminent danger and on the verge of collapse. In the end, Sorrogue's attacks did not hit him at all. Gradually, following Sorrogue's fierce attacks, Noah's rapid retreat and dodging, the entire vast gymnasium's floor was shaken to the point that it was covered with cracks from the astonishing punches. Looking at the scene, the expressions of the Jumanli's kin, led by Lyeth, became solemn. Everyone, Lyeth said in a deep voice. What do you think? Very strong. Genova gave a heartfelt evaluation. Let's not talk about Mentor first. Sorrogue is really strong. Just the strength of his punches and kicks is far beyond the average superior demon. Even the Varuk, that can enhance attack and defense, is not as strong as him, right? His speed is also astonishing. Yuda stared at Sorrogue, who was in the midst of his fierce attacks. Although I'm not satisfied, even if my speed is enhanced, as of tonight, I'm still much weaker than Mr. Sorrogue, right? So this is the number one of the new generation of demons. Irina could not help but say. He's too strong. I finally know why even Minister Lyeth can't compare to him. It's really amazing that he could reach this level just by training his body. Los Valles' expression unknowingly became solemn. The reason why he could become the next head of the Ball royal family without inheriting the power of destruction is because he has this power that far surpasses the demons of his generation, right? Mentor. Aisha said worriedly. Will Mentor be alright? Hearing Aisha's words, Labelle could not help but cast a worried look at Noah. Even Gasper could not help but poke his head out from behind Junai and look at the arena. It's fine. Kitten, on the other hand, stared at the center of the arena and said so. The opponent is strong, but Mentor is stronger. Chapter 1869. Bomb. With another explosion, the cracked floor of the gymnasium was finally blasted apart by a powerful punch. A crater was blasted open, and wood chips and debris were scattered all over the place like gravel and rubble. Noah and Sirogue retreated quickly, putting some distance between each other. With the crater as the center, they returned to a standoff. Then, Noah slowly opened his eyes. In the face of that terrifying attack, there was not a trace of damage on his body. Sirogue stared closely at Noah. His expression was solemn. He opened and closed his palms, and moved his feet. His eyes never left Noah's body. Then, Sirogue spoke. As expected of an existence that can even kill a god. Until now, you have not launched an attack, not used your power, not even the legendary god's annihilation. You have only relied on magic to strengthen your leg strength to dodge all of my attacks. You are much stronger than I thought. Hearing that, Noah smiled slightly. Relying on his superb senses and leg strength that was comparable to a 5-digit divine being, Noah had completely grasped the rhythm and trajectory of Sirogue's punches. Dodging all of the attacks was not a difficult task. You are also much stronger than I thought. Noah glanced at Sirogue. And you haven't used your full strength yet, right? This one sentence caused everyone to be shocked. Oh. Sirogue suddenly smiled. Why do you think I haven't used my full strength? Isn't that obvious? Noah shrugged. You have been attacking for so long, and you still don't look like you're panting. If you have used your full strength, you should be feeling tired by now, right? Only after Noah said that did Lias and the others realize what was going on. Sirogue smiled bitterly and scratched his head. Damn it, you exposed yourself so quickly. I was thinking of at least giving you a surprise later. As he said that, Sirogue's eyes suddenly focused. On Sirogue's limbs, strange patterns began to flash. This is a technique that can increase the load and make my body bear the weight at all times. Sirogue's voice echoed clearly. Let me show you my full strength. The strange pattern seemed to dissipate and gradually disappeared. Boom! In the next moment, with Sirogue as the center, a powerful wave rushed out and turned into a whistling hurricane that swept out. The surrounding atmosphere suddenly became chaotic. The entire gymnasium began to shake. As the pupils of Jumanli's followers shrank, the wave that burst out from Sirogue's body turned into a mist-like light that covered his entire body. That is... Kitten was shocked. That is Chi. Chi. Everyone stood up in shock. Anger. Lias was a little surprised as well. Sirogue can use Chi. Could it be that he has learned immortal arts? No, Sirogue did not learn magic, Sazak suddenly said. However, after a long period of training, Sirogue accidentally stimulated the Chi hidden in his body. He was able to control his Chi to a certain extent and form Chi that could cause great harm to the human body and greatly increase attack and defense power. In other words, he can freely use Chi without learning any immortal techniques that can control Chi. The kitten couldn't help but tremble a little. I've never heard of such a thing. Chi was the source of life. It could also be called life force, life energy, and so on. Magic was the power that could control the flow of life, allowing people to freely use Chi. However, Saroj was able to use his own chi to a certain extent without learning immortal spells. How could Kitten, a member of the most powerful race in the Nikomata clan, who could also use magic, not be shocked by such a thing that was beyond common sense? In response, Sazax shook his head. It can only form combat aura to increase attack and defense. It's still far from a real magic. Magic had a wide range of uses. It could be used to determine the flow of chi between heaven and earth, as well as strengthen the body by controlling the flow of chi in one's own body. It could even interfere with chi in nature, causing trees to bloom or wither. When the magic was cultivated to a high level, the user could even disrupt and block the opponent's chi, directly damaging the opponent's life force and internal body. Sarog did not learn any magic, so he could not use chi so widely. Sarog could only activate his chi to strengthen the body inside and outside and improve his physical ability. However, even if that was the case, it was still terrifying enough. Sarog's physical ability is already powerful enough to damage this reinforced gymnasium. Lias's eyes flashed. And with combat aura that can strengthen his body, could his ability be? That's right. Sazax confirmed Lias's guess. Although I haven't seen Sarog use his true strength, the upper echelons all believe that if Sarog uses his full strength, he can already match some of the higher-level demons. Now, this guess has been confirmed in front of me. The combat aura that surrounded Sarog's body fluctuated, causing the air around him to riot. Sarog raised his fist that was shrouded in combat aura, the corner of his mouth slowly lifted. It's been a long time since I used combat aura. It feels good to be able to use my full strength. As expected, you're much stronger than I thought. Noah looked at Saroj, but his expression had become terrifyingly calm compared to the beginning. You're already stronger than Diodora when she used Orpheus' snake, and you even activated your combat aura. You can even fight the most powerful demon, right? Unfortunately, my goal is not the most powerful demon, but the Demon King. Sarog's voice rang. I want to be the Demon King, not the most powerful demon. Just being the most powerful demon is not enough. That's true. Noah smiled coldly. If that's the case, I'll show you a little of my true ability. Sarog's expression froze, but his eyes were filled with anticipation. What kind of power will you show me? The power to kill gods. Or the power to destroy gods. I'm looking forward to it. Don't worry. Noah looked straight at Sarog, his body began to surge with a vast amount of magic power. I won't let you down. However, the outcome of the battle between Noah and Sarog was destined to be inconclusive. In the next moment, Noah and Sazax's expressions froze at the same time, and they shouted. Be careful. Everyone at the scene was stunned. Before anyone could react, a strange phenomenon occurred. A white fog began to seep in around the gymnasium, and gradually filled the entire space. Fog. Sazax seemed to have thought of something and stood up in surprise. Not good, everyone leave this place quickly. After saying that, Sazax immediately activated the teleportation magic circle. However, almost at the same time, the white fog filled the entire space, covering everyone's figure. Clank. A flash of true red blossomed from the white mist. It was the destructive magic power released from Sazax's body. The fog that came into contact with the destructive magic power was instantly dispelled. However, most of the fog still surrounded the entire gymnasium, covering everyone in it. Then, Sazax sensed it. Around him, familiar auras began to disappear one by one. Sazax's expression darkened. Not long after, the white fog began to dissipate. The full view of the gymnasium was once again imprinted in Sazax's eyes, and also in Sarog's eyes. Sarog was speechless. It seems that something has happened. Sazax nodded expressionlessly. Sorry, Sarog, I have to get to work. Sirog naturally did not have an opinion, and looked around the gymnasium. He looked around the gymnasium that was empty except for himself and Sazax. Chapter 1870. After being covered by the white mist, Noah immediately felt his vision blur. It was as if he was thrown into the air. First, there was a sense of weightlessness, followed by a sense of dizziness. By the time the feeling of being on solid ground returned, Noah's vision had also recovered. However, what entered Noah's eyes was not the vast gymnasium that was still there a second ago, but a street surrounded by residential buildings. This is... Noah was surprised. He turned his head and looked behind him. There was an apartment there. Moreover, it was an apartment that Noah was very familiar with. It was the apartment that Noah lived in. I am back in the town. Noah narrowed his eyes and muttered. It can't be, right? In front of him was a familiar apartment. Around him was a familiar street. However, whether it was in the apartment or on the street, Noah did not feel a trace of life. If this was really the Chariot King town that Noah was currently residing in, then it would definitely not be so deathly still and devoid of life. Most importantly, it was clearly night time, but the sky here was very bright, as if it was daytime. Moreover, it was slightly rotating and twisting like a kaleidoscope, making people feel dizzy for a while. All these phenomena told Noah that this was not Chariot King town. What the hell is going on? Noah's brows furrowed tightly. At this moment, Drake's voice sounded in Noah's mind. Partner, this might be the power of the Dimension Lost. Dimension Lost. Noah was startled at first, then his heart skipped a beat. Dimension Lost. It was one of the 13 types of God's destruction tools. Moreover, it was one of the highest grade God's destruction tools. The ability of this God's destruction tool was to have the user as the center, infinitely spreading spirit energy. It could seal all objects that entered it, and even send them into another dimension. That is to say, in the process of my duel with Saroj, I was sealed by the wielder of Dimension Lost, with the ability of divine annihilation. Noah looked around. Sealed in this fake Chariot King town. That should be the case. Drake replied. This space seems to be a replica of the entire Chariot King town, using the technology that the demons use to create extra-dimensional spaces for ranked games. You were transferred into this space by the power of a Dimension Lost. In other words, this is a different space. Noah's furrowed brows slowly relaxed. Is there a way out? Relying only on the power of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear shouldn't be enough. Drake said. Among the God's annihilation tools, this Dimension Lost is of a higher level than the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. It is known as one of the 4 most ferocious God's annihilation tools. Even if it's you, if you want to rely on brute force to escape, you won't be able to do so without your authority, right? Without his authority, it was impossible for Noah to rely on brute force to shatter a space. Moreover, Noah wasn't sure if he was the only one who was transported here. Perhaps the others were also transported here. Noah's eyes flickered. I have to look for them. Just as Noah was thinking about this, the back of Noah's hand suddenly started to heat up. Noah subconsciously raised his hand, and then he saw it. On the back of his hand, 2 elven markings that merged into one were flashing, glowing and burning. Seeing this, Noah's heart skipped a beat. Did something happen to Aster and Athena? With this thought in mind, Noah wanted to summon Aster and Athena, but after thinking about it carefully, he gave up on this idea. Although he didn't know what happened, Aster and Athena were with Orpheus, so even if something happened, they shouldn't be in danger. If he summoned Aster and Athena now, it was very likely that he would leave Orpheus alone. Letting Orpheus, who had absolute power but didn't have the heart to guard against others, act alone would be too unsettling. Therefore, it was more appropriate to let Aster and Athena accompany Orpheus. However, Noah and Orpheus were attacked at the same time, so Noah could only think of one person who would do this. Is it calamity again? Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. Noah raised his head and looked forward. In the next second, Noah saw it. At the front of the replicated street of Chariot King Town, a cloud of dust rose up. Noah's eyes gradually narrowed as he stared at the flying cloud of dust. He saw that in the cloud of dust, huge black figures began to appear. They were huge ferocious beasts. Roar! Roar! Woo! Chaotic roars mixed together and turned into a deafening sound wave that reverberated in the sky. Looking at the large number of ferocious beasts rushing towards them like a stampede of hundreds of beasts, Noah was shocked. Where did so many magical beasts come from? Just as Noah was a little surprised, Drake's voice sounded again. Partner, those are most likely magical beasts that have been created. What? Noah was stunned. Created magical beasts. That's right. Drake's voice clearly reverberated in Noah's mind. Using one's imagination to create all kinds of magical beasts. The stronger the imagination, the more powerful the magical beasts created. That is the same as the Dimension Lost, the Annihilation Maker, ability of the highest level of divine annihilation. Using imagination to create all kinds of magical beasts. Isn't that the same ability as Noah's beast horde incarnation? Is that also the power of a god's destruction tool? And it's also the highest level god's destruction tool. It seems that our opponents this time are at least two of the most ferocious god's destruction tools. Drake couldn't help but say. This is a little troublesome. As if to prove Drake's words, a large number of roaring magical beasts' eyes flashed with ferocious light. Like wild beasts, they rushed towards Noah with earth-shaking footsteps. Noah's eyes suddenly flashed with a fierce light as he advanced instead of retreating. Whing! Like electric wiring, magical lines spread out on Noah's arms and calves. Bang! Noah fiercely stomped on the ground, shattering it and turning it into a bullet that shot out of the barrel and shot towards the berserk beasts that were swarming over. Get lost! With a cold bellow, Noah threw a punch at a magical beast that was pouncing on him in a frenzy, causing the atmosphere to become chaotic. Dong! Accompanied by a heavy roar, the huge magical beast that was more than 100 times larger than Noah was directly sent flying by Noah's punch. The scales in front of its body exploded and sputtered blood. Like a kite with a broken string, it flew all the way back and fiercely crashed into the magical beasts behind it. The power of that magical beast was definitely comparable to that of an ordinary superior devil. However, the strength of a superior demon was at most in the 5 digits. Ordinary superior demons might not even reach the 5 digits. In front of an enhancement magic that could reach 5 digits, this level of power was just a punch. Roar! Roar! Woo! However, the rest of the magical beasts didn't seem to be afraid at all as they madly rushed towards Noah from all directions. Facing the ferocious magical beasts that rushed towards him from all directions, Noah's pair of deep dark eyes didn't show any solemnity or fear, but only a bone-chilling coldness. Dong! The sound of muffled blows was incessant. Bang! The buildings suddenly shattered. The battle between a single human and a large number of ferocious beasts had completely turned the street into a battlefield. The battle was one-sided. Chapter 1871. Bang! The sound of a blow that made one's heart tremble reverberated in the air, causing the huge magical beast to fly away like a rubber ball, heavily crashing into a building. At the same time, the building was smashed into pieces, and its head tilted to one side, no longer breathing. Clang! The flickering magical patterns on Noah's arms and calves faded little by little, becoming dim. However, the surroundings had greatly changed. The originally intact street seemed to have been ravaged and completely turned into ruins. One building after another became dilapidated. The streets were covered with rubble and debris. Numerous large magical beasts were lying on the ground, dripping with blood. The ground was gradually dyed red, causing the air to begin to fill with traces of the smell of blood. Noah was the only one who was standing in the center of the Azura-like battlefield. Even though he had fought with a large number of magical beasts, his face was still not red, nor was he out of breath. There was not a single trace of injury on his body. Phew! Noah gently breathed a sigh of relief, gradually calming down the excitement in his chest. Is this the power of the Annihilation Maker's godly annihilation tool? Relying on imagination to create all kinds of magical beasts' divine tools. At first glance, this Annihilation Maker's ability was very similar to one of Noah's powers, but there were still some differences. The most fundamental difference was that the beasts created by Noah's powers were just aggregations of energy, without consciousness or wisdom. Rather than calling them magical beasts, it was better to call them puppets. But the magical beasts created by the Annihilation Maker's Annihilation Maker could bleed, breathe, and even have a physical body, completely like a life. If the magical beasts created by the Annihilation Maker could exist forever, then it would be really amazing. After all, that was equivalent to the domain of creating life. However, the magical beast's strength is not high, at least much weaker than my beast horde. Noah's words made Dalag's voice sound again. That is only because the holder has not grown up yet. If the holder is stronger, then the magical beasts created will be stronger. Not to mention, since it is a divine tool, then there must be a restriction. If the restriction is used, then the magical beast's strength will be greatly increased, right? Noah nodded and agreed with Dalag's words. Since the opponent is from the Disaster Squad, we will meet sooner or later. Noah looked around. Let's go and see if anyone else was transferred here with me. With that said, Noah was about to move when a rather ferocious aura entered the range of his sensing ability. That aura was not only fierce, but it also had a very dangerous feeling. Noah's eyes focused, and he quickly. Swoosh! Almost at the same time, a black shadow suddenly shot in Noah's direction, causing a whistling sound to be heard. Its speed was extremely fast. Noah did not even think. The magic in his body rolled, and the magic patterns on his calves flashed again. His whole body was like a ghost, and he dodged to the side. The black shadow that was shooting over at an extremely fast speed suddenly trembled. It suddenly made a turn in midair, rubbing against the air as it streaked across the sky. It flew straight in Noah's direction without hesitation. At the head of the black shadow, the shining fangs were imprinted in Noah's eyes. At this moment, an indescribable feeling rose in Noah's heart. Partner. Dalag's voice also sounded. Those fangs are very dangerous. Don't get bitten. Even without Dalag's reminder, Noah understood this point. Those fangs were very dangerous. If he was bitten, even Noah might not be able to survive. But, if it was the other way around, don't be a problem just because I'm bitten, right? Noah abruptly stopped retreating. His deep, dark eyes stared at the black figure that was rushing towards him. He slowly clenched his fists, and the magic patterns on his arms also flashed with light. Just as Noah and the black shadow were about to clash, a somewhat anxious voice sounded. Wait. Wait. Quickly stop. The sudden voice caused the black shadow, which was rushing towards Noah's direction, to suddenly stop. Then, the black shadow swept into the air, flashed above Noah's head, and landed on the ground. Before that, Noah had already turned around. Thus, the black shadow's full appearance was finally completely exposed in the air. Upon closer inspection, it was actually a wolf. A wolf with gray fur all over its body. The wolf's size was not considered large, and was about the size of an ordinary wolfhound. However, such a wolf's body carried an almost terrifying aura, enough to make people tremble in fear. And this wolf clearly had extraordinary intelligence, and the gaze it used to look at Noah with was comparable to that of a human's. However, that pair of intelligent eyes was now filled with a kind of coldness and vigilance. That was vigilance towards Noah. The other party, obviously, had also discovered that Noah was not simple. At this time, two figures appeared from the top of a building not far away. They jumped down and landed on the ground. They were two young girls. Meow. One of the girls looked at Noah, who was facing off against the dangerous wolf, and was surprised. "Isn't this the little brother god slayer that our Bain thinks highly of?" Bain. That was Kitten's real name. There was only one person who would call Kitten that. That was Kitten, who had once depended on each other for survival, became a reincarnated devil, but killed her own master, and became a wanted criminal in the demon realm. Her talent in magic, sorcery, and immortal arts was almost astonishingly high, and her strength was comparable to the highest level of demon Nikomata Black's song. "It's you." Noah frowned. "Why are you here?" "I also want to know." On Black Song's delicate face, the surprise slowly faded, and was replaced by a coquettish and seductive smile. "But, by the time I reacted, I had already been transferred here with Luffy-chan and Fenrir-chan." Meow, Fenrir. Noah's eyes flashed, and his gaze turned to the dangerous grey wolf. "So that's how it is, it's Fenrir. The most ferocious demon wolf in Norse mythology, Fenrir." If it was it, the reason why even Noah felt that its fangs were very dangerous could be understood. No matter what, that pair of fangs was the God-Slayer fangs that could kill even gods. With Noah's current physical strength, if he was bitten by those fangs, he would definitely die. Of course, as said just now, if he was not bitten, then it was not a big deal. After all, although Noah felt a dangerous aura from Fenrir, he did not feel threatened. Thinking about it, just like what Sazax and Asashel said, although Varley got Fenrir from Loki, it was impossible for him to completely control the existence of the top 10 in the world. Although the aura of Fenrir was very fierce and dangerous, it was not as strong as Noah imagined. It should be that Varley, in order to be able to control Fenrir, caused Fenrir's strength to decrease a lot, right? Fenrir was taken by Varley, and now you are working with Fenrir. Noah cast his gaze on Black Song again. You became a member of Varley's team. Because the other guys are too boring. Black Song shrugged helplessly. But my captain is much more interesting. He is only interested in the strong. He is also known as the Cat Elf race. It is more fun to follow Varley. Meow, how you want to play is your business. Noah glanced at Fenrir. But, when you play, I hope you can control your dog well. Otherwise, if you suddenly attack people like this, be careful that you will be slaughtered. Roar! Fenrir suddenly growled, and its four limbs began to tighten. Its eyes that stared at Noah were full of murderous intent and fierceness. Seeing this, Noah just curled his lips and smiled. He raised a fist that was faintly flickering with magic patterns, causing waves of magic to surge. A sense of hostility filled the space between Noah and Fenrir. On one side was the God-Slayer. On the other side was the God-Slayer wolf. The two existences that had the ability to kill gods seemed to repel each other, and both released undisguised hostility. Chapter 1872. Compared to before, Fenrir's power had indeed declined a lot. If the previous Fenrir was at least a 4-digit power level, and was one of the most powerful among the 4-digit power level, then now it was only at the 5-digit power level. If Noah only used magic after the third perpetual intelligence, then it would also be at this level. At this time when Aster and Athena were not around, Noah and Fenrir's power was about the same. However, other than the 5-digit power, whether it was Noah or Fenrir, they still had other weapons. Noah had the god's vanquishing tool. Fenrir had the god's fangs. Although the latter's weapon was very terrifying, as mentioned before, as long as one was not bitten, then nothing would happen. But Noah's God's vanquishing tool was different. Once the God's vanquishing tool that could multiply one's power was used, Noah would completely suppress Fenrir. If it was the previous Fenrir, Noah would still need to treat it seriously. However, the current Fenrir only needed to be careful of its fangs, then it would not be a big enemy to Noah. Do you want to fight me here? Nordic Magic Wolf. Noah said to Fenrir with a smile that was not a smile. I won't be merciful to you for Wally's sake. Roar. Fenrir growled again, its gray fur began to stand up, and its whole body fluctuated with a fierce and powerful aura. This demonic wolf's enmity towards Noah was not an ordinary kind of great. Moreover, from the beginning, it showed an astonishing hostility towards Noah. Therefore, Noah did not need to be too polite to Fenrir, and directly provoked it. And this situation made Black, who was at the side, a little excited. What? The God Slayer and the God Slaying Wolf want to decide the winner here. Good, good. Hurry up and fight, meow. This evil cat looked as if it wanted to see the world in chaos. On the contrary, the other girl beside Black came forward in a panic. No. No. They couldn't fight here. Fenrir saw us. The young girl's obstruction reduced the hostility on Fenrir's body by quite a bit, but the eyes that looked at Noah were still filled with coldness and vigilance. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. The girl stood beside Fenrir and kept bowing and apologizing to Noah. Fenrir seems to think that you are very dangerous, so he offended you like this. He was just worried that something would happen to us. He didn't really want to hurt anyone. I apologize to you on his behalf. I'm really sorry. This was the reason why Fenrir had such a strong hostility towards Noah, and why he had directly attacked Noah in the beginning. Just as Noah was aware of the danger of Fenrir's fangs, Fenrir was also keenly aware of the terror of Noah. Therefore, he attacked Noah from the beginning and was so hostile to Noah. Although he had wisdom not inferior to humans, Fenrir was still a demon after all. His way of thinking was closer to that of a beast. Instinctively aware of the terror of Noah, this demon wolf didn't hesitate to eliminate the threat. It was really pure. However, the famous demon wolf in Northern Europe seemed to be quite obedient to the girl who was constantly bowing. Under the girl's obstruction, he didn't have the intention to attack again. No, it should be said that he was observing, right? After all, Fenrir's eyes were still full of vigilance when looking at Noah. Noah didn't pay attention to Fenrir anymore, but looked at the girl who was constantly bowing. She seemed to be only 14 or 15 years old, the same age as the kitten. The girl wore a tall wizard hat on her head and a cloak on her back. She was dressed like a witch, but whether it was the hat or the cloak, they weren't black in color, but dark blue. There were also star patterns on them, which added a lot of cuteness. The girl seemed to be a foreigner, with a head of golden curly hair. At first glance, she was just a cute girl. However, Noah felt a strong magic power from the girl. It didn't refer to the magic power unique to demons, but the same as Noah's, magic power used to use magic and magic. In other words, the cute girl in front of him was a magician. This girl should be the Luffy that Black Goo was talking about, right? Looking at the girl who was constantly bowing to him with an apologetic expression, Noah couldn't help but sigh, loosening his clenched fist. Forget it, I didn't expect you to be transferred here. Could it be that Varley was also transferred here? Yes. Yes. Luffy quickly replied. We just got in touch with our companions in the team. Except for Captain Varley, the rest were transferred here. This is the work of Dimension Lost, right? Black Goo licked his lips, as if he didn't realize how flirtatious his action was. His eyes were fluctuating with coldness. Those guys from the Heroes faction are finally planning to make a move against us. In other words, Dimension Lost, one of the 4 highest grade gods' extermination tools, is the possession of the Heroes faction. But why would the hero's faction make a move against you? Noah looked at Black Goo. In a terrorist group, I won't talk about companions, but you are at least members of the same organization. Is your relationship so bad? There's no other way. Who told our captain to take Orpheus by his side without permission, and even gave her to you, an enemy? Black Goo spread his hands. You'll definitely be treated as a traitor, meow. Just as this sentence fell from Black Ge's mouth, a voice resounded. Classifying you as traitors is only one of our plans. After all, you are too unrestrained. If we let you do as you please, who knows when you will ruin our plans. So, we simply recruited all of you. Are you satisfied? Along with such a voice, the atmosphere at the scene became sinister. Noah narrowed his eyes, turned his head without any surprise, and looked at a building in the distance. Black Goo, Luffy, and Fenrir also didn't show any surprise, as if they had already noticed the other party's arrival, and turned their gazes over. Immediately, Noah and the others saw it. At the top of a building in the distance, a person was standing. A black-haired man wearing a Han costume, with a rather upright appearance, who looked like he came from a big country in the east. Looking at this black-haired man, Luffy's expression tensed up. Fenrir also stared over. Even Goo, who had been leisurely just now, began to retract his smile. He seemed to have become vigilant. It seemed that the black-haired man wasn't a simple character. However, compared to the black-haired man, Noah was more concerned about something else. The black-haired man was carrying a gun in his hand. A gun that was filled with fluctuations like dust and blood, which could stimulate everyone's skin. From the gun, Noah felt a dangerous power similar to Fenrir's fangs. No. Judging from the intensity of the fluctuations, the gun was even more dangerous than Fenrir's god-slaying fangs. It really is you. Black Ge's eyes flashed with an evil light. I knew that this operation couldn't be separated from you, the leader of the heroes sect, Chow Chow. Chow Chow. This name was no stranger to those who were familiar with Chinese history. He was the monarch of the Wei Kingdom at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, a character recorded in famous works such as Records of the Three Kingdoms and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The heroes sect was a human clan with the bloodline of heroes and brave people. The man in front of them was called Chow Chow, and he was also the leader of the heroes sect. There was no need to guess his true identity. There was no doubt. This man was the descendant of Chow Chow, the monarch of the Wei Kingdom at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty. He had Chow Chow's bloodline, and even had a name. The one over there is the famous Godslayer, right? Chow Chow's gaze fell directly on Noah. I finally meet you, the human with the god-slaying power. After learning of your existence, I have always wanted to meet you. I even prepared this stage for this. I don't know if you are satisfied. His tone was quite calm. However, anyone could hear the provocation in his words. Chapter 1873. Noah looked straight at the man in Han attire standing at the top of the building in the distance, but he didn't pay any attention to the other party's pretentious provocation. Instead, he put most of his attention on the gun in the other party's hand. Did you notice? The little brother of the God Slayer. Black Goo reminded with a smile. That's the most powerful divine weapon of annihilation, True Longinus. True Longinus. Calling it that might not be enough to know how famous this gun was, but if one mentioned its other name in the Bible, then one would know why it was the strongest God Slayer tool. The Spear of Longinus. The holy gun that once assassinated Jesus, in this world, referred to as True Longinus. It was an absolute artifact that could even pierce through God. It was the synonym of a true God Slayer tool. It was also the original God Slayer tool. Even the definition of Longinus was derived from its name. It was a holy relic that everyone knew. That was the true Longinus of Dusk. Sure enough, the dangerous feeling that the gun gave Noah was completely genuine. It's dimension lost again, annihilation maker again, and now even the true Longinus has appeared. Noah said sarcastically. 3 of the 4 great divine artifacts, known as the most evil divine artifacts, have fallen into the hands of the disaster squad. And it seems that all of them are in the possession of the hero faction. This world is really doomed. Among all the 13 God Slayer tools, the 4 most powerful artifacts were known as the highest level of God Slayer tools. These 4 highest level God Slayer tools were True Longinus, Brilliant Thunder Prison, Zenith Tempest, Annihilation Maker, and Dimension Lost. According to the latest information, the second-ranked Zenith Tempest was on the Angel's side, and the remaining 3 had yet to be found. Who would have thought that the other 3 highest-level deities' destruction equipment that no mythical faction had been able to find so far had all appeared in the hands of the hero faction of the Team of Disaster? It was truly ironic. By the way, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear and White Dragon Emperor's light wings, divine dividing, that sealed the 2 heavenly dragons were ranked 6th and 7th respectively. As for the Holy Spear, he was truly number 1. Aside from the Holy Spear, Cao Cao's strength should not be underestimated either, He Gu said, intentionally or unintentionally. After all, even Wally had no choice but to use Tyrannosaurus against this hero's descendant. Wally used Tyrannosaurus on Cao Cao. Noah was surprised. Really? It's true, Lu Fei answered Noah nervously. Captain once said that among all the opponents he had ever encountered, in terms of human strength, Cao Cao was the strongest after you. Oh. The strongest human. Cao Cao suddenly laughed. That's a good evaluation, but is that an evaluation after excluding the God Slayer over there? Cao Cao once again looked at Noah. His eyes were surging with the same joy that only belonged to battle maniacs like Wally. It seems that Wally thinks that you are stronger than me. Let me test it out a little. After saying that, Cao Cao raised the holy spear in his hand and aimed it at Noah's direction. Whang! A burst of bright flames fluctuated from the tip of the holy spear, causing the surrounding air to vibrate. The flames were solemn and sacred, giving people a suffocating feeling as if their bodies were tightly strangled. Seeing that the holy flames at the tip of the holy spear began to expand, Noah, He Gu, and Fenrir reacted at the same time. Fenrir directly bit onto Lu Fei's cloak, who did not react in time. Then, Noah, He Gu, and Fenrir fled in different directions. At the same time, the holy flames at the tip of the holy spear suddenly exploded, turning into a huge beam of light, shooting out like a meteor and heavily landing at the original location of Noah's group. Dong! The power of the strongest god-slaying tool exploded the entire ground like a nuclear bomb, causing the surrounding rubble, gravel, and even buildings to be drawn in, causing intense flames and shockwaves. In an instant, everything within a few hundred meters was covered, wreaking havoc crazily. In the flames and shockwaves, Noah's arms and legs flashed with magic patterns as he flashed out like a phantom. However, in the next second, Noah's eyes narrowed, and without any hesitation, he turned around and fled to the side. Almost at the same time, a holy spear fluctuating with holy flames swept out from the flames and shockwaves in front, piercing at the original location of Noah with a faint sound of breaking through the air. And in the flames and shockwaves, Cao Cao's figure holding the holy spear gradually appeared. Dodged. Failing to hit, Cao Cao did not advance rashly, but instead took a big step back. However, if the other party wanted to retreat, he would have to ask Noah if he agreed. Although the holy spear was indeed a threat, but like Fenrir's fangs, as long as he was not hit, it was not a big deal. Moreover, Noah, who had some attainments in swordsmanship, knew that compared to swords and sabers, the spear had more advantages in battle because its body was longer than swords and sabers. However, it was more difficult to use than swords and sabers, and its trajectory was easier to see through. Therefore, at the moment when Chow Chow retreated, Noah suddenly stopped, and with the strength of his strengthened legs, he stepped forward with a momentum that could crush the earth. As a result, Chow Chow, who was retreating, suddenly stopped and laughed. "I knew you would definitely attack." With such a sentence, before Noah stepped forward, the holy spear in Chow Chow's hand had already slashed out. Like a laser, it turned into a flash of sudden thrust, and violently pierced in the direction of Noah. That was a reaction that could only be made when the opponent's action was predicted. No, it should be said that it was a prediction. Chow Chow made a bold prediction that Noah would violently pursue him at the moment he retreated. Therefore, at the same time when Noah moved, he released a flash of high-speed thrust. Under such circumstances, Noah, who had already closed in, had no time to stop at all. It was as though he was flying toward the tip of the god-slaying holy spear like a moth darting into a flame. The tip of the spear instantly reached his throat. If this continued, it would only take a second for Noah's throat to be pierced. At the critical moment, Noah suddenly clenched his fist, and without stopping, he punched the ground. Bang! A violent shockwave suddenly burst out, shattering the entire ground. Gravel was lifted into the air, and mixed with the strong wind, it directly exploded in all directions. What? Chow Chow did not expect Noah to be able to do such a ridiculous thing. He did not even have time to withdraw his spear, and the foothold was directly shattered. Chow Chow, who stepped on a piece of ground, was bounced into the air together with the piece of ground. Then, the gravel and the violent shock wave that filled the sky flew in all directions. Only then did Chow Chow react. Not only was he not shocked, but he showed an extremely happy smile. Very good. This is what makes it interesting. After saying that, Chow Chow simply stood on the flying gravel, raised the holy spear in his hand, and pointed it in the direction of the ground. The next moment, the holy flame once again fluctuated on the holy spear, and one after another, it turned into a beam of sniping, and slanted down like raindrops. Naturally, Noah would not dodge the attack of the holy spear that could kill a god. Relying on his superb sensing ability, he accurately grasped the trajectory of each flash, as if he was shuttling through a storm. His footsteps continuously tapped, and like a phantom, he dodged the incoming flashes one by one. Bang, 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 bang. The sound of the flashes exploding the ground continued to resound. Chapter 1874. Pang, 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 pang. Flashes of light poured down from the sky, ravaging the ground, causing it to explode and shatter. Waves of shockwaves and flying dust were stirred up, causing the already dilapidated streets to be shrouded in artillery fire, completely turning them into ruins. Every flash of light carried the divine power of the god-killing holy spear. If demons and other existences that viewed divine attacks as highly toxic were treated like this, they would only need to be hit by one of the flashes to destroy them. This was the power of the holy spear that could even kill gods. Although Noah was very strong, his body was still in the category of humans. Once he was hit, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. Therefore, Noah relied on his superb sensing ability and ran like a phantom in the storm like flashes, dodging each and every one of the holy flashes. At the same time, while dodging the holy flash's shots, Noah raised a hand in a certain direction ahead. Clang! A deep-colored magic square suddenly rotated in front of Noah's palm, gathering an astonishing amount of magic power. Sensing Noah's action, Chow Chow, who was in mid-air and standing on the flying debris, was stunned at first, then he became speechless. This was because although Noah's magic square was not aimed at him in mid-air, it was aimed at the direction where the debris he was standing on was about to fall. If Chow Chow continued to stand on the debris and fall with the debris, it would be the same as Noah's. It would be equivalent to him being hit by the opponent's attack. Are you planning to give me a taste of my own medicine? Noah Dole. Chow Chow shouted as he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, leaping high and leaving the debris he was standing on. In the next moment, a beam of magic power burst out from the magic square, turning into a huge flash of light, flashing through space and sweeping straight ahead. Coincidentally, the debris Chow Chow was standing on a second ago followed the gravity to that spot. Pang! The beam of magic power hit the debris directly, causing a violent explosion. Above the explosion point, Chow Chow's figure turned into an arrow that left the bow as if riding the wind, swooping down toward Noah who was standing on the ground. Chi, 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 chi. The god-slaying holy spear suddenly thrust forward, turning into flashes of light that enveloped Noah below. That lightning-fast thrust was almost as fast as Noah's first form of the absolute sword skill, purple lightning. Noah's expression finally turned solemn in the face of these 4 lightning-fast thrusts. Although Chow Chow's thrusts were not as fast as the purple lightning, they were different from the absolute sword skill. Chow Chow's thrusts were completely dependent on his own skills, unlike the absolute sword skill which was combined with Shenwei. The stronger the Shenwei, the stronger the power. If he didn't train his skills to the extreme, it would be impossible to achieve such a fast thrust. Noah could tell. Compared to himself, Chow Chow was the complete opposite. Noah's battle was basically based on the power he obtained from various worlds. Chow Chow, on the other hand, did not rely on any power other than the god-slaying holy spear. He only relied on his own skills to fight. This kind of fighting style could not be achieved without a firm goal and willpower, as well as painstaking research and training. In other words, Chow Chow was a super skill-based fighting expert. In terms of martial arts, Chow Chow might be a lot weaker than Luo Hao. However, he relied on his ever-changing responsibility and the holy spear that could kill gods. He was evaluated by Wally as the strongest human existence besides Noah. He was definitely not weaker than the Demon King. Watching Chow Chow's battle, anyone would have the same thought. This was the fighting style that humans should have. Not relying on innate power, but relying on acquired effort and constant thinking to fight. This was the power that the descendants of the heroes and brave people who ruled the heroes sect possessed. Relying on this power, Chow Chow let Wally, who inherited the power of the Demon King and the Sky Dragon, use the Tyrannosaurus Rex. In that case, Noah stared at the 4 lightning-fast thrusts, his body surging with amazing magical power. I will also be a little more serious here. After saying that, Noah raised his hand. Clang! A red light flickered and turned into a ferocious dragon claw-like gauntlet, covering Noah's arm. Boost! Along with the sound, a powerful force burst out from Noah's body. Transfer. In the next moment, the powerful force turned into a torrent and poured into Noah's limbs. At this moment, Noah directly transferred the doubled power to the strengthening magic that he was using, doubling the effect of the strengthening magic. The magical lines that covered Noah's limbs suddenly became brighter. That is. Chow Chow's expression suddenly changed. However, at this moment, Noah had already tightened his body. Like a rocket soaring into the sky, he created a burst of wind and shot toward Chow Chow who was diving down. Whoosh! The fist that was covered by the red gauntlet carried a whistling wind. Under a burst of sonic boom, it blasted toward the 4 streaks of spear light that were coming at him at lightning speed. Clang! In the crisp sound of steel colliding with steel, the 4 streaks of spear light directly collapsed. The holy spear that killed the god was fiercely bounced away, causing Chow Chow's posture to collapse. Oh no! Chow Chow's face was full of shock. Without thinking, he fiercely held the holy spear in front of him. At the same time, the red gauntlet that carried a violent force came violently, shaking the air. Under the entanglement of the chaotic airflow, it heavily smashed on the holy spear. Boom! A muffled thunder-like sound resounded. Whoosh! In mid-air, Chow Chow was sent flying with his spear. Like a meteorite, he fiercely hit the ground in the sharp sound of breaking the air. Bang! In an instant, dust flew, and thick sand filled the air. Carried by a gust of wind, it blew in all directions. When the flying sand settled down, Noah, who was suspended in mid-air, saw the situation inside clearly. There, Chow Chow was half squatting on the ground. The holy spear in his hand was planted on the ground, supporting his body. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Looking at this scene, Noah narrowed his eyes. At the last moment, he removed the force and reduced the damage by a lot. If not, with Chow Chow's superb skills, it was absolutely impossible for him to be unscathed after being hit by Noah's superpower that had been multiplied. After all, Chow Chow was just a human. His body's endurance and toughness did not allow him to withstand an attack that could split mountains and rocks. In other words, Chow Chow's only weakness was his defense. In a battle with Chow Chow, whether it was the enemy or himself, both sides could only withstand one blow. Either the opponent was pierced by the holy spear that killed the god and was defeated, or Chow Chow was hit by the enemy's attack and lost the ability to fight. So, the conditions were the same. The moment he understood that Chow Chow was a superb skillful player, Noah saw through this weakness and used his superpower, enhanced magic, and overwhelming strength to defeat Chow Chow. Have you seen through my weakness? Chow Chow raised his head and looked at Noah with eyes full of crazy joy. That's right. That's how humans fight. Look for the weakness of an opponent who is far stronger than you, and then use a fatal blow to achieve victory. That's how the heroes and warriors of the past defeated dragons, demon kings, and evil monsters. In terms of physical strength, humans are born weaker than demons and monsters. In terms of strength, humans are born without any mystery. We can only rely on our own wisdom. We can constantly think of ways to achieve victory and then implement them. This is what humans are, and this is what we are. Chow Chow used the holy spear to support his body and stood up. He stared at Noah with a burning gaze. God Slayer, you are a human. You should be on our side. You shouldn't be on the same side as a group of demons, angels, and fallen angels. They are the aliens that are destined to be defeated by us humans. Come with me. Chow Chow reached out his hand to Noah. Let those mythical beings who are countless times stronger than humans see the power of humans. Chapter 1875. Chow Chow's impassioned words echoed in the air and did not calm down for a long time. However, Noah understood Chow Chow's meaning almost immediately. Chow Chow extended an olive branch to Noah. This descendant of the heroes wanted to recruit Noah and let Noah join the disaster squad and the heroes sect. Noah fell silent. However, Noah's eyes were still fixed on Chow Chow. After a long while, he said, "Let's go." After a while, he said, "Chow Chow, why did you join the disaster squad and lead the heroes sect?" Noah's words stunned Chow Chow. Obviously, Chow Chow did not expect Noah to ask such a question at this time. However, Chow Chow reacted quickly and spoke without hiding anything. "I want to know where the limits of humans lie." "The limits of humans?" Noah frowned. "What do you mean?" "It means literally." Chow Chow wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, raised the holy spear in his hand, and carried it on his shoulder. Everyone knows that compared to those demons, angels, fallen angels, monsters, and even gods that only exist in legends, we humans are too weak. We are not born with magic like demons, nor are we born with the power of light like angels and fallen angels. Chow Chow sighed. Compared to those monsters in legends, we do not have strong physiques and bodies. Compared to those gods, we are as weak as ants. If humans want to become stronger, there is only one way, and that is to work hard. Chow Chow clenched his fists. Just like mages, if they want to surpass humans, they have to learn how to analyze the magic of demons. The power of the exorcists of the churches comes from the holy sword, holy water, and the blessings of heaven. If humans rely on their own conditions, they will not be able to become stronger. At least, they will not be able to compare to those supernatural creatures that do not appear in daily life. They can only become stronger through unremitting efforts. And such a race, since ancient times, still gave birth to many heroes and warriors who were able to defeat the legendary creatures. Chow Chow continued to narrate as if he was talking to himself. A weak race is able to give birth to individuals that are superior to other creatures through hard work. If that's the case, what can I achieve in the end if I continue this training and hard work? Would they be able to annihilate the evil monsters like their ancestors? Or to achieve the unprecedented feat of killing a god? So, I want to know what a hero is, what a human is, and what kind of limit a weak race like ours can reach in the end. Chow Chow looked at Noah, his eyes burning with a strong determination. It was to explore all of this that I joined the Calamity Squad and became enemies with the various mythical forces. Because only by doing so could I prove how far humans can go compared to the races of the various mythical forces. So far, with this spear in my hand, I have defeated many existences. But even with this holy spear, which is known as the strongest god's destruction weapon, I still don't have the confidence to succeed in killing a god. Chow Chow's eyes on Noah became burning. Under such circumstances, a human who claimed to have killed a god suddenly appeared. Do you know how excited I was at that time? Noah could feel that Chow Chow's mood was indeed quite excited. The words of this descendant of a hero were filled with an unimaginable determination. Therefore, Noah understood. This man really only lived to explore the meaning of the existence of heroes and humans and the ultimate limit of their existence. However, Noah met Chow Chow's burning gaze, but his heart was like an ancient well without ripples. Just because of this? Noah asked. Just because of this, you didn't hesitate to cause serious casualties to the lives of the other forces. Is there a problem? Chow Chow said matter-of-factly. Anyway, those creatures are destined to be destroyed by us humans in all kinds of myths, aren't they? In one sentence, he successfully exposed Chow Chow's psychological flaw. Hey, Chow Chow, Noah said faintly. In your heart, the so-called hero is a warrior who must destroy all kinds of demons, demon kings, and demon dragons, right? What? Chow Chow asked curiously. Isn't it? That's right. Noah murmured. Then, he stared at Chow Chow coldly. Then, you really can't be a hero. Chow Chow's expression changed. Noah clenched his fist that covered the gauntlet. Boost! The surging power shook the gauntlet and turned into a torrent that flowed into Noah's body. Transfer. The torrent of power once again poured into Noah's limbs and turned into food for the electric lines of magical power. The effect of Noah's strengthening magic suddenly multiplied, giving Noah incredible power. Seeing this, Chow Chow understood. Noah disdained to be on his side. In the next second, Noah shook the void and rushed toward Chow Chow like a meteor. However, Chow Chow had already noticed that Noah didn't want to talk nonsense with him. Before that, he raised the holy spear in his hand. Clang! Holy light burst out from the holy spear and surged in all directions like waves. The strong light directly took away Noah's vision, causing him to close his eyes involuntarily. He abruptly stopped in the midst of rushing forward. Then, Chow Chow's voice came into Noah's ears. It seems that you don't agree with my philosophy. Fine, since that's the case, let's see who is the real hero between the two of us. I'll be waiting for you in a corner of this alternate space. Your students are also in my hands. If you want to save them, then come find me. After leaving behind such a sentence, the strong light that covered the entire space gradually faded away. Only then did Noah open his eyes. However, Chow Chow's figure had already disappeared without a trace. Looking at the place where Chow Chow disappeared, Noah muttered to himself. Chow Chow, on one side was a human who could kill gods. On the other side was a descendant of an ancient hero. This was the beginning of the battle between humans, and the curtains were gradually raised. On the other side, Chow Chow returned to the hero sex base camp. Siegfried, who was wiping a sword, looked at Chow Chow, who walked in with his clothes covered in dust and a faint trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Why are you in such a sorry state? Can't help it. Chow Chow smiled indifferently. My opponent is an existence who can kill gods. Moreover, he has a dragon residing in his body. Even if it's me, it's natural for me to be forced to this extent. Is that so? The corner of Siegfried's mouth rose. It seems that you are very satisfied with your opponent this time. It's not a matter of satisfaction, Siegfried. Chow Chow narrowed his eyes, which were surging with emotions. My opponent this time is really too good. He's so good that any battle maniac would not hesitate to risk his life in a fight with him. Oh. Siegfried was surprised. You weren't even this excited when you faced Wally. Is that Noah Doria really that strong? Very strong. Chow Chow said solemnly. Without using a divine artifact, he was already not weaker than me. After using a divine artifact, he suppressed me directly. I was completely at a disadvantage when fighting him. Is he that strong? Siegfried's eyes lit up, and he was a little restless. This is the first time I've seen you give a person such a high evaluation. A god slayer. Even I want to fight him. There will be a chance. Chow Chow shrugged, then turned his head and looked ahead. There, magic squares were suspended in midair. Within those magic squares, people wearing the uniforms of the Foal King Academy were sucked into the magic squares like Jesus nailed to a cross. It was none other than Leah's and the other Jumanli family members. Hurry up and come to me, Noah Doria, Chow Chow muttered. I can't wait to fight with you again. Chapter 1876. So handsome meow. When Noah fell from midair and landed on the ground, Black Song jumped out from an unknown corner and hugged Noah fiercely. Suddenly, the touch and softness of her voluptuous body assaulted Noah's entire body. A fragrance that did not belong to a cat also burrowed into the tip of Noah's nose, causing Noah to jump in fright. To be able to force Chow Chow away so easily, you really are worthy of being a strong opponent that my captain has set his eyes on. Meow. Black Song's arms wrapped around Noah's neck, and her eyes that looked at Noah fluctuated with a charming expression. However, if even Orpheus can fight to a certain extent, it doesn't seem strange that little brother God Slayer can defeat Chow Chow. So, what are you so excited about? Noah narrowed his eyes and said snappily. Or do you have some enmity with Chow Chow? That's not it, Black Song said frankly. But seeing the handsome side of little brother God Slayer, my heart is thumping. If you don't believe me, you can touch it. As she said that, Black Song really took Noah's hand and smiled as she pressed Noah's hand on her voluptuous bosom. Noah, who had not expected Black Song to actually do such a thing, was stunned. When the texture of the fabric and the voluptuous softness fell into his palm, he quivered and quickly withdrew his hand. What are you doing? Noah flew into a rage out of humiliation. Don't tell me you're also in heat like a kitten. Meow. Black Song blinked her eyes. So Bai-Yin has entered the estrus period. You've done it. It's none of your business. Noah said bluntly. Get away from me. As he said that, Noah intended to push Black Song away. It was a pity that Noah's strength was no match for the Nikomata clan's cat spirit without the use of magic or artifact to strengthen himself. He was unable to push Black Song away. Not only that, but Black Song was even more insatiable. He snuggled his entire body into Noah's embrace. His tail wrapped around Noah's waist and wrapped around Noah's waist. You can't just dote on Bayin, right? Black Song extended a hand and caressed Noah's cheek as if she was caressing him. Her expression became bright and moving. Give me some of your love too. If I can give birth to your child, the God Slayer and Red Dragon Emperor, that would be great. Meow. He had to admit that this black cat's teasing skills were frighteningly high. He snuggled tightly against Noah's body. His body was so soft that Noah could feel his body heat through his clothes. The cat's tail wrapped around his waist was like an itch, constantly rubbing against him. Noah felt his spine begin to go numb. His hot breath directly hit Noah's ears, causing Noah's heartbeat to involuntarily speed up. Noah felt that if this continued, he might really fall for this cat's teasing. He took a deep breath. Dong! A loud knocking sound rang out. Meow. Black Song held his head and squatted down with tears in his eyes. Don't go too far. Noah sighed as he retracted his hand from Black Ge's head. You don't even think about the situation you're in, and you don't even think about where you are right now. You're in heat so casually. Why does little cat have a sister like you? What does that have to do with anything? Black Song protested. It's normal for cats to be a little perverted. Meow. Then please don't tempt me. Noah rolled his eyes at Black Song. No matter what, I'm still your sister's teacher. It's okay. Black Song winked at Noah. I don't mind having a pair of sisters with Bayin. Meow. A pair of sisters? Noah couldn't help but think of the situation when he had sex with his two delicate wives. Meow. Black Song blinked his eyes again and laughed mischievously. Little brother God Slayer. Are you moved by it? You're almost drooling. WH. What? Noah almost subconsciously wiped the corner of his mouth, but he didn't manage to wipe anything. Only then did Noah realize what was going on. He had been deceived. Pfft. Black Song couldn't help but laugh out loud. Meow meow meow. I didn't think little brother God Slayer would be so fun. Meow. It wasn't just Black Song. Even Luffy, who had come over at some point, was secretly laughing with a red face. As for Fenrir, who was standing beside Luffy, when he looked at Noah, his eyes were no longer cold and vigilant. Instead, there was only contempt and disdain. Noah suddenly had the urge to find a hole and hide in it. He looked at Black Song, who was squatting in front of him, and raised his hand angrily. Meow meow. Black Song jumped in fright and hurriedly hugged his head. Okay meow. I won't laugh anymore. Meow. This silly cat didn't hesitate to act cute. He even hugged his head and squatted down. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At that moment, Black Song raised his head and looked at Noah. The smile on his face didn't fade, but his tone changed. What do you think of Chow Chow? Very strong, Noah said sincerely. No wonder even Wooly had to use T-Rex against him. This was the truth. Chow Chow himself was already an extremely skilled combat expert. In addition to the power of the Holy Spear, which could even kill gods, Noah didn't have the confidence to defeat him if he didn't use his artifact and elven device. Just now, if Noah didn't use his artifact, it would have taken him a lot of effort to defeat Chow Chow. The strength displayed by the descendant of the Wei Kingdom at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty was at the peak of the 5-digit level. He was definitely not inferior to the Demon King. Moreover, that wasn't Chow Chow's full strength. Under normal circumstances, Chow Chow's Holy Spear is already capable of unleashing such a level of power when paired with his superb techniques. If Chow Chow has already reached the forbidden level, then it's no wonder Wally needed to use Tyrannosaurus on him. Noah looked at Black Song. You're not going to tell me that Chow Chow won't use Forbidden Hand, right? Chow Chow will use Forbidden Hand, Black Song said with a smile. And it's a very tricky Forbidden Hand. Wall-E had no choice but to use T-Rex after Chow Chow used Forbidden Hand. In addition to the god-killing Holy Spear, if Chow Chow really wants to kill a god like Loki should be able to succeed. Meow, in this case, Chow Chow's full strength should be at the 4-digit level. Although I don't think the Godslayer will lose to Chow Chow, it's best to be careful. Black Song snuggled into Noah's arms and whispered again. That guy is a human after all. He highly values the theory of weakness. Perhaps, after the battle just now, Chow Chow has found your weakness. Meow, weakness. Noah ignored Black Song's affectionate gesture and slowly curved the corner of his mouth. Then I'll wait and see. After all, Chow Chow wasn't the only one who didn't use his full strength. According to Chow Chow, Leah's and the others should have all fallen into his hands. Noah turned his gaze to Black Song and Luffy. Do you have a way to help me find them? Black Song was a cat elf who could use immortal spells. Immortal spells could be used to search for the chi of nature. If Black Song used immortal spells, he might be able to find the chi of Leah's and the others, or even the chi of the heroes. As for Luffy, Noah didn't know how strong this girl was, but if she could join Wally's team, it was enough to prove that Luffy's strength was not ordinary. A powerful sorcerer might have a way to find people. In response, Black Song just shook his head. I don't feel the chi of Baiyin and the others, nor do I feel the chi of the heroes. It should be a matter of distance. I might be able to find your companions, my lord. Luffy raised her hand weakly. But I need some time. Then I'll leave it to you. Noah nodded at Luffy. I'll repay you for this favor in the future. No. No need. Luffy quickly shook her head and waved her hand. Then, she coughed and put on a serious face. Then, I'll begin. Having said that, Luffy raised the broom in her hand and drew a magic square on the ground. Noah, Black Song, and Fenrir all retreated to the side and watched Luffy.